pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Someone came and changed the flags around.
roll call. Angie, please.
Basting. Bush.
Here.
Dolphin.
Here.
Gunlaw. Here. Hay. Here. Steffes.
Here.
Stevenson. Here.
Recognitions, Luke, take it away.
Yeah, we do have recognitions of our Badger girls and boys that were represented at the state level. We've got Katie and Hawken here, if you don't mind just standing for a little bit. I'm going to ask you to kind of give us your take on Badger boys, state girls. The girls were represented at, you went to Oshkosh, right? And the boys were at Ripon?
Yes.
Or do I have it the other way around? Boys were at Ripon? So Badger State Boys and Girls has been a program that's been around for a lot of years, and there's 2 representatives that are selected from Mineral Point that goes through a civic activity where they mimic what local government and state agencies would do to coordinate and solve a problem. And each person is given a role that they have to then partake in that exercise. So if you could share a little bit about what the role was that you were selected to be and what the issue was that you were working with. It'd be helpful for us to get a better understanding of your role. And so, Katie, you want to start? Ladies first.
Sure. So I didn't actually end up running for any of the political offices. I kind of enjoyed just sitting back and watching it all and taking it all in. But I did serve as city parks director, and I got to serve on a board where we got to work on one of our situations was like a power plant causing cancer. There were medical issues like that, and how we were going to reimburse the people who were affected by that. And that's one of the situations that we got to deal with, and I guess just how as our government, how we would help them financially.
Fantastic, thank you. Hawkins.
So I was the municipal judge for my city and the circuit court judge for the county. And there was one issue that was very small at both levels, so I didn't get to do much with that. And then the guy that ended up being elected governor was also from my city, so I got to serve in his cabinet and helping with decisions at the state level. That was really cool. And then getting to meet guys from anywhere from Lancaster and River Valley all the way up to Coleman and Oconto. Getting to meet guys from around the state that have different experiences and getting to hear from them. That was really cool.
Fantastic. Thank you for representing Mineral Point. This was sponsored by the American Legion of Ladies Auxiliary, so I want to thank them for sponsoring the students that attended. And I hope the experience was rich and you brought back some good experiences to share with your classmates and your classes. So congratulations, our boys state and girl and boys. We do have a small gift for you, and I know each board member wants to shake your hand and congratulate you for representing Mineral Point.
Start right over here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Approval of minutes. Everybody got a copy of the minutes last month? Motion to approve. Moved by Kelly. Second by Larry Elvin. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Quick comment. 725, it should read, not Kelly B. It reads Kelly B. For Kelly.
Okay.
That needs to be adjusted. Thank you.
On 725.
725 says Kelly B. Under call to order. It should be Kelly G. Minutes. So with that,
Okay.
with that revision.
With that revision, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Communications. Board communications received.
The board did receive a letter from Candy Basting, which was shared with the board prior to this meeting, so just want to recognize that we did receive that and forward that on to the board for consideration.
All right, citizen comments. So, just two comments for the first grade staff. I'll allow comment during the agenda portion of that if you want to wait. you want to speak now, that's fine.
Can I interrupt? Sorry, I'm really new to this, sort of.
Sure, Alex.
Sorry, Alex Carey, 2 first graders, so, just quick, did 4 students get added, so there's now 49 in the class?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge, okay, it was just a rumor I heard, I didn't know if that was before the 45 or after the 45.
Yeah, we do have one more registration coming up, but as we go right now, it's 45.
Okay, thank you.
But there had been about 4 students added?
We were at 42 last year at the end of the year, and we've added 3, so we're at 45 now.
And certainly will be discussed a little later on. Jennifer Schaff, kitchen fees?
Yeah, I had a few questions about adding a $25 kitchen fee, and I'm guessing that is to clubs that would be using the kitchen, such as the basketball, wrestling, things like that.
Correct, it would be any school event that was using the kitchen outside of normal hours.
Right.
School-related event or community event, yeah.
Well, my concern is that we do use a lot of things for the school for those events, and we also provide a lot of things as a club throughout the year, and I'm just wondering if this is going to be a dominoes effect to then, now we're adding maintenance fees on top of it, and then other kind of users fees, if this is the first step to more fees that are going to be added to it. I mean, I know $25 isn't much, and I know we bring in our own soap and our own towels. The only thing that we actually use are the facilities itself. We don't use any of the facilities, and if we use, like, say, parchment paper or anything like that in the kitchen, I usually, pay like a 3-cent fee or per sheet that I use, things like that.
I'm gonna get Jennifer, this is on the agenda, we'll part it down. Were you gonna stick around?
I was hoping to, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we'll bring all the comments up during that portion of the agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else? Anything to say that's not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move on. Business services, credit card statement of activity and approval of bills payable. We have a motion to approve. Motion by Julie, do you have a second?
I got a question on first.
I'll second.
Second by Ian. Go ahead, Larry.
We're talking both bills.
Yes, credit card and bills payable.
Okay, the one I do first, I have a question with her on Joelle's fee for that, was it in her contract?
Joel, is there a national stipulation in your contract?
It does not say so, no.
Okay, thank you.
You just made the decision to go ahead and pay it.
I did, yes, I approved that. I pre-approved it.
With the board,
The board was aware that she was attending the national?
but we weren't picking up the bill, or
Yes, that was the assumption.
I wasn't going to.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Abstain.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Steffens.
Yes. Employee services, nothing this month?
Nothing for this month. No.
Items for information and discussion, insurance update.
Yeah, we do have, I think I saw Mr. Gibson here. There's John right in front. Welcome. You can stand there, you can use a chair if you want to just take a few minutes.
So just a quick introduction of myself and why Luke invited me to come tonight. My background is just why I know anything about school and risk management. For any of you might know me, I'm originally from Darlington. I was on the school board there, the school board president for many years. And but now I do risk management and safety for school districts across the state of Wisconsin. I work right now with about 160 public school districts. And if anything can go wrong, I've seen it happen in school districts. And I just had an employee embezzlement case this last week that was very interesting in our district. I'm going to change crime insurance. I'm going to call it Fund 60 coverage from this point on. That's where we always get our embezzlement cases. So anyway, it's always very interesting. But I represent EMC Insurance, and you've been insured with EMC now for, goodness, almost 20 years. I've worked with you for a long time as your broker. And tonight I just kind of wanted to give you a brief overview. I'm not going to talk very long because I just wanted to give you a quick 10 minutes what we do, how we protect the district, the kind of things we're seeing happen throughout the state of Wisconsin. If you read your school news magazine, I do author articles in there several times a year. I've authored articles on drones to property protection to a lot of different articles, so hopefully you take time and read those because we're trying to do things to help protect school districts. And so this brochure that I handed out to you, I'm going to have you flip to page 4. It's one that just kind of gives the brief overview of all the coverages. And I'm just going to hit a couple of things, and if you have questions, feel free to fire away. The number one thing, the company that you're insured with, EMC, is an A-rated company. They're very financially strong. We have had some catastrophic claims over the years, and I share examples because I think we learned from them. I mean, my single worst claim, which is a very well-known case, was the young lady at Ellsworth who fell through the trapdoor doing the play The Wizard of Oz many years ago, and now is a quadriplegic. Her name's Tasha Shu. It was a $6 million loss for us. And she's one of the most amazing people I've ever met because she's now a public speaker. If you're ever looking for a good general speaker for your school, Tasha is like exceptional. Anyway, she was our single worst claim in the state of Wisconsin in 20 years. Fell through a trapdoor, became a quadriplegic. The second worst claim I've had in the state of Wisconsin was a Chippewa Falls bus accident several years ago, which was about a $2 million claim. So I've dealt with a lot of large claims over the years, including employment cases to embezzlement cases to fires, the Hurley School fire many years ago where they lost a building. That was a big deal. So we insure you for all those things. My background is actually workers' comp. I was an adjunct professor at UW-Platteville for a few years and taught a workers' compensation laws class. So if you have a question in that area, good chance I can answer it for you because that's an area of my expertise. But the big question, and when I do board presentations, I do these frequently, the area where I usually get most questions from board members, if you look at the section that says errors and omissions coverage. Why is this important? This is what protects you as a board for any decision you make that a third party might sue you over. So what are the type of claims we get here? These are the employment cases. These are your wrongful termination, discrimination, harassment suits. The one thing I've been seeing the last few years, which unfortunately is on the rise, are the bullying cases. Parents are starting to sue school districts because they don't feel that the bullying issues are being addressed and the parents bring suit. We would defend that case on the school's behalf. The other big area that we see lawsuits is with IEPs, special ed related cases where we can't get the parents and staff to come together in an agreement. We go through mediation, it doesn't work, they file litigation for something to happen. We would defend those cases. Those are probably the most common things we tend to see happen. But the question I get a lot of times from board members is, well, how am I protected? Well, the answer to that is, as a board member, your definition of an insured on our policy, we cover board members, employees, volunteers, anybody acting on behalf of the district. You're protected under the school's liability in errors and omissions policy. So one of the common questions I get in this area is, well, what about all the co-curricular activities we do as a district? You know, whether it's forensics, FFA, the team basketball, football teams, everybody that's traveling, band, anything you do as a district, we cover you when you travel. So we've got baseball teams going to Florida, we've got band going to St. Louis for various events. Yes, when you travel as a district, your liability coverage follows you wherever you go, as long as it's a school endorsed activity. The only gray area that I get a lot of questions on are the traveling teams. There's a lot of traveling teams, you know, the club teams. I always tell Luke and all the administrators I work with is, if you recognize them as a school district, as a school endorsed group, we recognize them. You know, most districts don't recognize, you know, the clubs, the traveling teams as school endorsed because they're doing their own thing. They're often, you know, 6th grade boys or 5th grade getting together and doing whatever. Well, they're a separate club, you know, so they really should have their own insurance. So, but anything held on your premise is covered by your policy. And you might have seen this in the news. We had kind of a strange claim, bad claim here a while ago where the Wisconsin Heights basketball traveling team was playing at Middleton. You hear about this case? And the girl slid on the basketball floor and she kind of got impaled by a piece of wood that was sticking out on the floor. I mean, you always have liability coverage for anything held on your premise. So if somebody was, you know, if there's an unsafe condition or unsafe piece of equipment. I had a basketball game this last year where we had middle schoolers playing. Well, right before they went on to play their traveling team, there was a gymnastics thing going on in the gym, and they went to move all the apparatuses off to the corner of the court, but they didn't get them far enough off the court, literally about a foot off the one corner, and a girl fell into it during a game because she got pushed and they're pressing and whatever. Well, we covered that because it was an unsafe condition in the school. So even though you have all these traveling clubs and teams that might be using your building, you always have liability coverage for anything that's held on your premise. and follows you wherever you go in terms of any activities that you have. So those are real common questions that I tend to hear. In terms of workers' compensation, historically here at the school district, we haven't had much for claims over the years, knock on wood. You've had good loss experience and not a lot has happened there. I literally work with about 100 administrators in the state of Wisconsin, and this is unsolicited from Luke, but he's one of the finest superintendents that I work with. I always can tell a good superintendent because they ask questions. I'm always concerned about my districts that don't call me and ask me questions when they got things going on. And Luke is always really good about calling me and asking me questions on things. Hey, we're thinking about doing this or that. What's the liability related to this? And that's what I'm here for. I've dealt with this for a long time in terms of the exposures for districts. And the one that's kind of unusual that's been coming up recently is all of a sudden schools want to start firing off fireworks at football games again. That's an issue. So I don't know if Mineral Point's thinking about doing that, but I've been getting a lot of calls from districts that want to start doing it. So it's kind of like you didn't see anybody do this for years, and now I'm starting to get the calls that all these schools are wanting to launch fireworks again at their football games. Well, yeah, there's some real risk management safety issues with launching fireworks at a game, so you just need to be cautious how you do things like that. So that's what I'm here for, is to kind of answer those kind of questions, or if a claim arises, I work with Luke on any potential claim, and so that's my quick 10 minutes. Do you have any questions for me on any specific area of coverage, or what we do to help protect the district against claims or safety risk management related questions?
So do we have coverage in leased property too?
Yes. Yep, if you lease property, we automatically extend liability and property coverage to probably your contents for leasing that space.
Okay.
But yes, yeah, we absolutely cover that.
Okay.
And with your construction, we do village risk policies too, like as you're doing your stadium project, we've been ensuring that, because that's been moving forward, and I just saw it coming in, so is it done now?
We're working on it.
Yeah, okay, all right, it looks like it's getting close, so.
So the options in education, were they, okay.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and we also have an umbrella policy that's over the top of our regular policy that gives us additional insurance capabilities, so. I would just share that the district was with EMC long before my arrival, and every year we bid this process out, and they continue to win our business every year, and it's really a function of the services they provide and the cost benefit to the district. So thank you for coming on. I don't know if you've joined our board before in the recent past, but
No, it's been a while, I
it's
think,
always
yeah.
good to come back and just check in and make sure that.
I was trying to remember, who was the superintendent from Iowa that came here many years ago? Yeah, so I think that was the last time I was here, so it's been a while.
So welcome back.
Yeah, so.
Any questions for John?
How big is your company, John?
EMC is a $2 billion company, that's our assets. But total EMC works with about 300 school districts in the state of Wisconsin, about 1,500 in the Midwest. So it's a major segment of what we do as an organization, is working with public school districts.
Is there a number of average payout per year from claims, you know,
Per claim?
average per year on claim, you know?
Yeah, not top of my
What
head.
they're running?
Yeah, no. I just know historically Mineral Point's performed very well. You haven't had much.
Pass this along.
Yep, you bet. So we haven't had much for claims over the years, yeah, so.
Okay. Any other questions?
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you coming in. John, your hometown, I know it's down here in the.
Darlington, yeah, that's where I don't live there anymore, though. I live in Columbus now, so, yeah. All right, take care. All right.
ACI annual performance report?
Yeah, Aaron is here, Aaron Rittenhouse is here, he's returning from last year to give us an update on our performance report for our energy efficiency project that happened about 4 years ago.
And I know you guys have big packets, so I brought along an extra hard copy.
Nice
It's
clean
a
color
more
sheet.
sustainable way to do it. Easier to access. You got one?
I have a copy.
Thank you.
So again, just want to thank the board for taking time. We get the opportunity to work with Luke and the board on an annual basis because, as you probably know, under the revenue limit exemption program, there's an annual report that's required for the full duration of the term, and we helped Luke put that together so that it could be submitted. Reviewed that here earlier this month with Luke, and then just wanted to report out to the board. This is a color-coded sheet. There was a base project that's in green, a change order 1, which is in yellow, and then a gray section, which was change order 2. These were projects that scope that expanded out. Thanks for putting that up, Luke. So if we look at, I just kind of want to go through these things for the audience too, so people understand, because we're prone to use acronyms. The building envelope was a significant savings in terms of natural gas. It was just basically tightening up the building envelope. The building's impacted. AHUVSD stands for Air Handling Units with Variable Speed Drives. So it basically makes the mechanical systems, the HVAC systems, more effective and efficient. So if the building is occupied, you don't need to be heating and cooling it as much. You need to have some air exchanges. HVAC recommissioning, pretty straightforward, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Motion sensors was the first change order. That was related to basically lighting. And then we're looking at, and I apologize, FIM stands for Facility Improvement Measure, replacing 16 windows, and then the CO2 sensors and hot water reset. That's another component there. And then you also see the last item there. We're looking at natural gas being the bulk of the savings. So if you look at the bottom, and it's kind of more to the right-hand side in terms of cost, under natural gas, you see that at $26,334 in the reporting period. The reporting period basically ran from July of last year through June 30th of this year, your reporting period. And then electrical cost was $6,168 in terms of cost avoidance. And then the total utility cost avoidance versus baseline is $32,502. And then some additional cost avoidance in terms of operations and maintenance. If that equipment hadn't been replaced, the board would have had to spend more monies on maintaining the older equipment over time. And that's a pretty conservative estimate in terms of that equipment. So all in, you're looking at, you know, roughly 33,000 and some change in terms of the cost avoidance that the district realized as a result of doing the projects. And they were pretty straight ahead projects, but would welcome questions or comments. Yes, ma'am.
Was last year a milder winter?
Slightly milder. I mean, and these are, but not by much, I mean, in terms of what was really there. And I can verify with our measurement and verification engineer, because these are degree adjusted days in terms of the reporting. So it reflects the degree, the temperature is taken into account as well. So that helps drive it. So if it's a milder winter, of course, you're not going to spend as much on utilities as what you otherwise would. Like back in 2014 when we had the so-called polar vortex, that was a pretty significant impact.
So you say there were degree adjusted days. What does that mean?
So for example, if it's 2014, you're not going to have saved as much as what you did in this reporting period. So if we would have 2014's reporting period up, it would be less than the 33,000 because of those more extreme temperatures that we had in winter of 2014. So degree adjusted means that we take into account the temperature fluctuation, and then we reflect that in the numbers that are here. So given you had a milder winter, you saved more money. And that's just, like all of us in our homes, we save more money if we had energy efficiency measures in a milder winter. Other questions or comments the members of the board have?
How many more years do we have?
I believe, and Luke, correct me if I misstate this, I believe there's about another 7 years remaining. I believe it was a 10-year contract.
6 or 7, yeah.
Yeah.
This might be the 4th of.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 6 years remaining after this year.
And you come back every year, right?
Yep, come back every year. And I'd be happy to come back at a different time if the board wants to have more questions. But basically, this is an opportunity for the board to ask questions of myself in particular, and then for me to make sure before we submit the report on the district's behalf that the board doesn't have any questions or concerns.
Are we within the goals?
Yeah, you're slightly exceeding the goals. And again, it gets back to that milder winter. I mean, we were pretty aggressive with the goals, but you, I think, exceeded, and I'll verify this with the measurement and verification engineer and get back to Luke, but I believe you exceeded by a little more than $1,000 this year in terms of what the target was.
And these are based on our actual utility bills?
Based on actual utility bills, yep.
It would be helpful to see the whole project added every year and have that, I mean, maybe for next year. Just to see the big.
Yep, we can certainly do that and put it up year by year and then have a separate slide that shows the year by year comparison.
I'll make a note so that we
Yeah.
did it next year.
Any other questions for Aaron? Thank you, sir.
Just again for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks again for coming down to Mineral Point and joining us, I appreciate it.
Review of class sizes. I'll let Luke give an overview and then I'll allow for public comment.
We did move that into action items. So, yeah, it was originally items in discussion, we moved that to action just in case we decided to take action. Okay. It will come up real shortly here if you want to stay in order.
All right.
So the 210 plan would be the next.
Let's just stay in order. Go ahead.
The board, and I think it was Member Basting, had inquired about some of the data from the 210 plan and its effectiveness. So we had tabled it for July as Mitch was able to report out in August, and here we are. So Mitch has prepared some data, and we'll share a little bit of information around the 210 plan as a follow-up to an earlier board discussion.
It came after the poor planning on the end of the school year final exam schedule. It didn't allow for school being shut down one day on the final exam, so we took basically the majority of the final exams all on one day. And Member Basting said, how come you didn't plan for an odd day? And I said, well, in the winter I planned for a bad weather day, so the finals are always spread out over 3 days. I didn't plan for an odor problem causing us to shut down near the end of the day. And then we asked about attendance rates to look at some comparisons. So I asked Janet to print a report on average attendance by term and by period. And for the 4 classes, as you might guess, since nobody gets the 210 plan in the 4th 9 weeks except the seniors, the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors all had their lowest attendance percentages in the 4th 9 weeks because there was no extra motivation for them to show up. The freshman was their lowest by about 6% compared to their highest attendance rates in any of the 3 previous terms, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd 9 weeks. So the freshmen were down about 6% in the 4th quarter. The sophomores were down about 5%. The juniors were down about 5%. And the seniors, it was their 2nd highest attendance rate in the 4th quarter. If I look back, I believe 2012 was the last year that the 210 was in place. And I look at the attendance rates, the freshmen, sophomores, and seniors, that was their highest attendance rates because all 4 classes were impacted by the 210 plan. I don't know what was going on with the juniors that year, but for some reason the juniors decided they weren't going to be here and wanted to take finals. That was their lowest attendance rate in the 4th quarter back in 2012. So there is an impact on attendance patterns for students with or without the 210 plan.
What are the attendance rates? What percentage?
This year the freshmen had a high of 97% and they were down to 91% in the 4th quarter. The sophomores had a high of 94 and they were below 90% in the 4th quarter. The juniors had a high of 92% and were below 90% in the 4th term. And the seniors had a high of 93% and they were about 91% in the 4th term. Their other 2 terms for the seniors were lower than both 2nd and 4th quarters. So you could probably poll a lot of parents who would say, I love the 210 plan because I don't have to argue with my kid in the 4th 9 weeks when the weather gets nice after coming through the winter.
Is it full absences, is it tardy, what?
2 absences, 1 tardy, and no detentions. That's the 210.
Is that explained on the webpage, on 210 plan?
Probably not because we took it out of the seniors.
It doesn't.
It's in the handbook.
Pardon? It's in the handbook, but it's not what's in the procedure. So it's helpful for me to have a visual, because I can't retain anything you said. So is there somehow that it would be, we could have a visual on that?
Just
to print out or something.
Just what the 210 plan is?
Is and what your report says. Because if we're being informed of this, then there's a reason that we're being informed.
Member Basting had asked that I bring back
Yep.
some numbers.
Yeah. It's helpful to have a visual. For me, I won't say for anybody else, but
Why did we not implement the 9, 10, and 11 back in the day? Do you remember
I remember.
what the reason was?
I remember at least 2 reasons. One is that it encouraged students to come to school who were very sick. I remember people, I mean, I can remember some specifics, students who, I mean, really were very, very sick and were going to school. So there's a health issue, for one. For two, if you have the 210 plan for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, then they're not taking finals in the spring. And then they're less prepared for college. And I think it's better for learning, personally, and I think that educators would back that up, that you have to then study the things that you learned that last semester and take a final on it.
over time.
It reinforces what you learned. So I think
And it's a
having
measure,
those
it's a
students
good
not
measure
take
for
finals,
teachers.
I think it takes away from the learning experience. And I think that studies would prove that out. That's why finals exist. So that's my recollection of why we got rid of it and only kept it for the seniors. Because they were the ones that had the biggest issue with attendance.
When a student has an absence, do you look at the reasons, Mitch? I mean, they have to have a reason to stay home. They just can't stay home.
We don't get a whole lot from the state of Wisconsin because they allow parents to call in for whatever reason up to the first 10 days.
10 days per year.
After that, then there is excusable absences, doctor's appointments, court appointments, sick, those kinds of things.
Is there a pattern of average achieving students or higher achieving students missing school versus the other?
I don't know if I can point to a pattern. I can attest to several students who, over the course of the years when the 210 plan was gone, especially there was several juniors saying, my cousin's coming home or moving home, or my sister's moving back from college. I have to take finals anyway, so I'm going to be gone tomorrow to help them move back. And I know, I understand the educational value of taking final exams. Every student takes a final exam in January in every class that they have. I think there's something to be said for being in attendance at school as well. I've done hunting in the past. I don't now. I value sleep more than I value getting up and heading to the woods before sun. But if parents call students in for bear hunting, pheasant hunting, turkey hunting, deer hunting, if they're within the first 10 days, there's really not much I can say about it. Do I disagree with that? I think there's a lot to be gained from the family nature of what's going on. Just like here's a kid that has an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., and they're going to tour some of the historical places there. Boy, I can't provide that here. I mean, what a great opportunity. I wish the kids were here. I wish they were in attendance. But I can't fight those things either. I just know that the fourth quarter tends to be the toughest quarter for attendance purposes.
But we also, Larry, would have that family responsibility. And you've got a lot of parents that will just call in and say, hey, Johnny's not going to be here. We have a family responsibility. So, I mean, that opens it up quite a bit. And I'm not sure if that's a state excuse or if that was something that was approved by our board a few years ago, that they can use family responsibility.
Is that a state statute?
There is a state statute about attendance and truancy. I don't know if it's for the rational reasoning that you can call them for.
All right. Maybe we should get familiar with that short statute. Any other questions on the 210 plan? One more for you, Mitch. As the principal, you support the 210 plan for all 4 grades?
I do.
Vicki?
Yes, I had 210 plans. I was in school. Look at me. I turned out okay. At least I think.
Andy, you
And I had to take finals in college too, so.
Any thoughts, Andy?
I think it's important to have students in the building, so attendance improves, learning improves. When I was in Darlington, it was the whole year, but they called it the waiver, but it's the same idea as a 210. So they didn't take finals at all. The fact that our kids taking the first semester, I think they definitely get a taste of it. And then some incentive for review in the 4th quarter.
Thank you.
At the last meeting, I believe we approved the high school handbook with the 210 plan for only seniors.
Yeah, this isn't an action item, this is
Right,
just
not an
a
action
discussion to
item.
bring some information forward.
Any comments? Okay, board policy, the 100 series.
There's one just before the 100 series, it's the purchasing policy. It's policy number 672, I believe. And the current policy states that any item that is in excess of $5,000 would need board approval before going forward. And any item that's over the amount of $10,000 would receive competitive bids or quotes for those goods or services. And there's a couple other agenda items that are on the agenda for the board that have been somewhat problematic. The one is the approval of the FAST program, which is coming up for the board as an action item. And the other is the approval of social studies textbooks. Textbooks are automatically in our category that need board approval regardless, but there are 2 purchases that are just over $5,000. So they, by nature of this policy, need to come forward to the board for final approval. And because we only meet monthly, it creates some inefficiencies. And so I would like to make a proposal that would reverse those, and that actually I think what would be more efficient for us, especially this time of the year, would be to looking at any costs that exceed $10,000 would need board pre-approval before we would go forward with that purchase, but that any item that was in excess of $5,000 would have bids solicited and attached to the quotes that could be reviewed at any time from the board. It seems a little bit backwards and is prohibitive in my case for those items that are just over $5,000 but less than $10,000 to have to wait a month in order to go forward with putting the business in the school. And I would think that the board would want anything that's a $5,000 item or more to have at least 3 competitive quotes on it. Right now I think that threshold is just high. So it's up for just a discussion, a first review. It's not an action item, but it would help me, I think, to become more efficient in our day-to-day operations. I appreciate those that have been patient to kind of get an answer on some of our expenditures. I don't suggest we go to bi-monthly meetings where you've got a finance meeting, you've got a regular meeting. I think that's not efficient either. So I just open it up. This would be something that I would recommend, and the policy was new, I believe, a year ago. I think we adopted it. So it's just a good time to review to make sure that we're doing what we want to do and reauthorizing it as is or making some subtle changes.
I have a question on the bid shall be sealed for contracts in excess of 100,000. How did we come to that number? Was that also discussed then?
I believe there's a state statute that does kick in, and I believe it mirrors that.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's some discussion about that number changing as well, I think, in this budget discussion.
Okay.
But that is, I think, mirrored to
So
the state
that's a
statute.
state.
Yeah, for governmental agencies such as schools, there is a state law that would suggest or state when you have to have a sealed bid.
Thank you.
I agree with the change, the second change, for competitive bids, lowering that threshold to 5,000. Personally, I'm in favor of keeping the first item at 5,000 and not raising it to 10. When we set 5, we looked back at purchases that were made that we wish that the board had had some say over. and that's how we set it at 5,000. So I'd be in favor of keeping it at 5.
I agree with Lisa.
Does anybody think that it should be changed?
I mean, I've said this before, I feel like if we're giving clear direction on what we believe where our money should be going, Luke should be spending in a way that aligns with the direction of the board. So I've always had sort of an issue with us getting in and improving the day-to-day versus giving a strong message on our strategy. So I like where this is going, personally.
Okay. Larry?
I like to leave it as it is.
I think if we're gonna leave it as it is, we've gotta be open, and I'm not saying we're not, but we've gotta be open to the idea that there may be a second meeting in some months just to approve purchases. Like, I mean, the fast training would have been nice to have scheduled prior to 2 weeks before we put it in place if we're gonna go that route. So that would be my only thing, is we've gotta be then, if this is our route, then we've gotta be open-minded about the fact that, you know, we may be here for 10 minutes to approve something in the second meeting in a month.
And I think we've been open to that.
Yeah, you've been very accommodating, so we can look at that as well. You want to make recommendations for bringing this back with any revision, or leave it as is?
The competitive bid part that's the only change that's really up for discussion.
Is this just gonna be a longer process now, though? $5,000 with competitive bids and having to come to the board for approval? I mean, are we just making this more complicated now?
I don't think it's more complicated. I mean,
Okay.
We were already doing it.
Yeah, yeah. It just doesn't require it for an item under 10,000, but we would naturally bid things out that are expensive, pieces of equipment or others.
And can we address this again next year to see how it's?
You can always put this
Yeah,
back in for review.
Yeah.
Sure.
So are we clear, we want to bring it back to lower to 5,000 for competitive bid?
I think somebody want to just make it in the form of a motion and just decide how you want to proceed, or leave it as is, whatever the motion is.
Do you want to bring this back next month? I mean, this is just the first read. Why don't we bring it back next month and not have it in the form of a motion?
So when I say bring it back, leave the existing language on the top as is, and leave the second language as 5,000.
Right.
I guess that's the consensus I'm looking for, is how to bring it back.
Right.
I think that seems like,
It does seem to be the consensus.
I mean, and we can discuss it again next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe to Kelly's point, you could put something in about having this policy be reviewed annually?
Yes, because I think how, to Julie's point, that the more that we give clear direction, that we reassess, you know, these policies, and so that may change.
Yeah. And, you know, whenever you've got a dollar figure in a policy, I mean, that can get stale pretty fast. 10 years from now, that this might,
Yes.
might not make
Yeah.
sense.
So down to board policies now.
The 100 series starts with policy 165. This is a first reading, so we can take a little time to discuss if you want to know some detailed information, but if you're following your board packet, that starts on page 45. And I would just highlight a couple pieces. This is the policy on school board member conflict of interest. And then there's a rule that accompanies that, which is procedures relating to school member conflict of interest. And the specific item that I want to address or bring to your attention as you look through this, and this would be an area that I would want the board to have some clarification on, is under the rule number 2. It talks about participation means that a board member will not discuss or debate a matter if they have a conflict of interest, and they would not make a motion or vote on the matter, and they wouldn't do anything to otherwise influence the decision of the board, which essentially means not entering into the discussion, which is hard in a rural community where we have a lot of people involved in a lot of things to necessarily remove that voice altogether from the table. And number 3 goes even further to suggest that if you have a conflict of interest, that it might be in the best interest, or you're strongly encouraged to leave the room while that discussion happens, so that you're not weighing into the conversation and unduly influencing it. So I think the board wants to take a look at that policy and affirm that that is or isn't the way you want to do business as you look at complicated issues. And it's much easier to have this discussion before the conflict of interest arises rather than in the middle of a conflict of interest, and whether you should or shouldn't be able to be in the room or have a discussion or be able to debate and or vote. So that would be a couple places I'd have you look closer. If there's anything else on that particular piece, let me know.
I actually, with this conflict of interest policy, I thought it would be worth having a policy meeting to look at the other sample that's out there. I personally like the other sample. I felt like this one was a little bit vague.
Okay.
Sample 2?
Hold on.
Because there's two samples. Or
Well, there's a
policy.
sample rule, and there's, what Luke has presented is sample policy 2. There is a sample policy 1 that's in the policy resource guide of the WASB.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So these are two different?
No, this is the policy and this would be the rule.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe bring that back to a policy committee meeting, or bring it back to the other board and we'll do a compare and contrast.
I think it would be better in a policy meeting rather than a
too.
full board meeting.
Okay.
Yes, I agree. Yes, because I had a question on number 7.
And likewise, the sample policy for the 170 that you have,
Mhm.
it seems like there's some holes in it, so why don't we put that on the policy agenda as well?
You just do A, B, and C all together?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or
Any
do you
questions
be
on
okay?
that one too?
I actually thought that the board member electronic communications was fine, but if you want to lump them all together, then that's fine.
And then it might be prudent, if we're going to continue to go through this process, to just have a standing policy committee in between board meetings to make
That's-
recommendations, rather
that's
than
fine.
bring it here,
Yeah,
go back, and bring it
Yeah,
back.
I
Yeah.
think it makes sense.
Let's go. Okay.
So 165-1 on the conflicts of interest and 170 is going to,
65, 66, and 70.
Also,
Okay.
all three.
okay.
Down to items for action.
All of these.
Review of class size.
Yes. Review of class size.
Thank you.
We'll let Luke explain the situation in the first grade, and then I'll allow our public comment.
The current last year's kindergarten class, this year's first grade class, as they departed last year, was at 42. The current enrollment, as we had it as of Friday coming into Monday morning, was 45. There were 2 students that have moved into the district. There is 1 student that is an open enrolled student, and even though we were closed for open enrollment, they had a sibling that was attending the district, and we have traditionally not broken up families, so we've allowed siblings of students that are attending to enter into the classroom. So that brings 3 full students into the first grade at 45. By our class size policy, it's policy 343, we strive for approximately classes of 15 in those primary grades of K-1-2. And so now that we've hit a threshold of 45 with 3 classes of 15, it gives the board the opportunity to review class sizes and to affirm that you want to move forward with 2 sections of 22 and 23, or you want to move forward with 3 sections of 15. So I open it up for discussion, questions. We have some of our first grade team members here. Mr. Renwick is here as principal, and there are some parents that have registered to speak as well.
So before we open it up, we'll go through our options.
Sure. The first option would be to leave class sizes as is, or I'm sorry, FTE allocation as is. There'd be 2 teachers. Right now, we have scheduled literacy support. Kimberly Diefenbach is our intervention specialist and instructional coach, would reduce those roles, and then would help with support literacy with a 3rd class of readers in the morning, working through the literacy components that are earlier in the day. In the middle, the encores would be larger as they move through the middle of the day. At the end of the day, math would be in 2 sections. That would be a challenge for the group currently. We could look at supporting that with additional aides. There would be a co-teacher model that's scheduled in that grade with Danielle Swenson supporting one of the 2 teachers in first grade. So So we're trying to layer in some supports to try to make a large class size work well. It is a smaller classroom area, and so that we would be challenged with space of 22 and 22 bodies in a smaller setting with a lot of moving bodies in those areas. If we were to add a third class, there would also be a challenge for where that location would go. Most likely it would go into Kimberly Diefenbach's old room, and then she would have to relocate her intervention work into an adjacent classroom, maybe Danielle Swenson's room. That's to be determined what the best fit would be for spacing. But we have kind of a couple constraints on building size, classroom size, number of classrooms available, and the number of resources available to support in the form of assistant co-teaching to try to layer back in. The layers of support are not certified teachers, so they aren't in a lead position to be able to deliver course content like literacy or math. They certainly can support the delivery of those areas. The other option would be to add a third teacher to the classroom. I think that would then bring your class sizes down to 15. And I'm not really, I haven't considered an option where we would bring in a part-time teacher like an 80% or a 60%. I think class size wise, either break them down into 15 and kind of go back to the original model, which was 3 teachers in every grade level earlier, about prior to my arrival. And then more recently, we got back to that place where we had 3 teachers across all grade levels, K-5. And with this last class size being small in pre-K kindergarten, we did reduce that teaching load because the kids were less than 15. But I think part of it is looking both currently and long-term, and how to address this issue of 45 going forward year after year. What are we going to do in 2nd grade and 3rd grade and 4th grade, I think is a question for the board. And the other part that's unknown is the first day of school, we could have more kids come in, more kids that have left the district. And so there could be a wait and see approach, but this gives us the opportunity to put staffing in place if the board decides 3 is the number.
Alex?
Well, I'm just coming into this knowing that we've already had this discussion in the previous grades for this class. I'm trying to go into it with an open mind, and my girls are older for their class. They're doing fine. I know there's some students in the class that do require extra attention. I've also subbed for their class quite a few times, in which case there's even a disruption with one of the students where it puts some of the others in danger. That kind of scenario makes me feel like my kids could strongly benefit, even though they're old for their class, could strongly benefit from having another body in the room if the classes aren't small enough. I know that was an issue in previous grades as well. Kind of just wanted to hear your side point of view. I realize it's probably an issue if we added a 3rd class where you're going to put them, like you said, but kind of want to see the thought if our community does grow, if maybe this isn't the first step to hear what you guys think we need to do as far as if we need more classes and more classrooms, what's going to be the plan? This is just the start. Hopefully our community grows. Yeah, kind of just get your perspective on what's going to happen if we're going to face this issue every year to come for my daughter's class. So, just hearing your input, that's all I'm here for.
Thank you, Alex. Maggie?
Yeah, I just had a similar thoughts to Alice's. I just saw that this was going to be on the agenda, heard it was going to be on the agenda, so I thought I'd come, preemptively share my opinion. That I also had occasion to volunteer 3 times a week in this class in kindergarten last year, and the teachers and the assistants and the whole staff, they do an amazing job. However, it is a lot of bodies, a lot of personalities, and kids are coming from a lot of different skill levels, abilities, and it can be a strain to get to each kid individually, you know, within the windows that are available to the teachers. I also think that structurally, it seems like every class above 1st grade has three teachers, and that if that was static, then that would make more stability for the staff. Going forward, if instead of every year having kind of rejigger classrooms and what grades teachers are, you know, teaching and who their co-teacher is that year, I know that, again, we have awesome teachers and they would do fabulously at it, but that's all an energy drain that could be put into the kids. So I wanted to just say that.
Thank you. Megan? Comments from the board?
Seems to me that first grade is one of the most important grades. It's the grade when most of the kids learn to read. And that's critical to their, future success. I personally would be in favor of hiring a third teacher. Luke, it's August, it's almost the middle of August. Can we get a really good teacher who would be ready to go right after Labor Day?
Matt, you just went through the hiring process for kindergarten, so we can talk about the applicant field that's out there and what you would anticipate.
Sure. We had a good pool of candidates for the kindergarten position we hired. It was a very tough choice, which was a good thing. My experience hiring this late in the stage would be more of a challenge. I don't think you would get as much depth in the candidates or as much experience. You're just not going to see someone, because of their contract with their current district, you're not going to see someone who has experience jumping in August. I wouldn't think so. That would be my concern. Just trying to hire someone pretty new and then trying to get them up to speed. Would it be more beneficial to have those kids with veteran staff who, just wouldn't need that support? So that would be, on the same side, you might get a diamond in the rough and someone who just was passed over and good at that, and you snag them, and that's, it's a win for us. It's just really hard to say, but it is more challenging, I can say that.
I'd like to think we're a destination district and that some people would be willing to take a chance at a later meeting, but you don't know until you post a position, and from there, what I would share is that we have had high expectations about hiring really quality candidates and teachers in our district, and I would rather forego a mediocre candidate that we're not really strongly supportive of, and just find a way this year and look to post that position really early for future years, so that we would have a good quality candidate. But if we did have that diamond in the rough that was interested in coming to Mineral Point, that would give us an opportunity to at least explore that.
We got a diamond in the rough when we got that music teacher, I heard.
We've been very fortunate to attract some very good candidates.
So I think some candidates may have been passed over. And it's competitive market.
The other, right, true, there are positions, people, yes, teachers are looking for jobs.
Yes.
The other thing too is you could post a first grade position, and you have some people who are non-classroom teachers could slide into that position as well, and then you might be looking to hire for that position, which might be, it just depends on what position they would come from, might be easier to find someone in that. And that's just hypothetical. I don't have any person in mind, but we do have some certified staff in the district who are not in the classroom, could step in, and I would feel comfortable with that, and then post for that position.
The only thing I recall, last time I hired them, they couldn't move up. Remember that? So we had to hire another teacher. Don't do that again.
Because of certification, they couldn't move up?
That's what they told us anyhow.
Was that the reason?
If you're speaking of not being able to move up, there's some current staff that have certifications that are K5 or 6-8, and so a 5th grade teacher could move up to 6th or vice versa down again. Most of the certifications now are becoming more widely spread, where it's a K8 certification, and so there'd be a little more flexibility there. Certainly we've had a group that went through, there was a large bubble, and every year that we hired, we decided to retain that staff member in the past in order to keep the incoming classes behind it that weren't as big still across 3 teachers. And that's part of maybe what you're speaking of, is that every time we went from 2 to 3, and then they moved up a grade, we went from 2 to 3, we didn't then reduce the third one back to 2 again. That was a
Oh,
conscious decision by the board.
Laddie, is that what you're
That's
saying?
what we've done, I think, 3 times.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I agree with Lisa. I think not only reading is important, but first grade is a big buy-in for kids. I mean, that's where you get a really big buy-in for a student. It's just, it's socially, you know, emotionally, everything, education. So, you know, I guess I'm open to that third teacher. I think that, you know, the money part of it is probably going to be the big discussion.
One wrinkle to add to this too, I know, and I'm not, and I agree with what Kelly and Lisa are saying, that is a critical age. They make tons of growth, especially as readers and writers at that age. Another thing to just think about is at 4K, we're at 41 kids right now. So it's something to bear in mind. That are we going to continue these discussions long term, sections of 2 to 3? I don't know, just something to bear in mind.
But your kindergarten class has,
They have, they're good, 18, across the 18, 18, 19, so that's
three sections.
Yep.
So you're gonna need 3 sections next year. for
Yes.
first grade.
And I think if we have to address this every year, that's something we have to address, especially
Yeah.
with open enrollment.
And I think looking at just long-term trends though, you know, when the senior's leaving, kindergarten's coming in, what is the trend over time? The trend over time shows that we do have declining enrollment.
Can we put language in a contract, Matt, being this late in the year, and I would expect that we'd get more applicants without experience than with language in a contract, like probation for a year?
All teachers are
All
on
teachers
probation
are
for a year.
probation for a year, yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, you can issue a 1-year contracts where they will be non-renewed, not for performance, just due to say, we have only hired you for 1 year.
And most, well, all teachers by state statute
It's
are
gonna be
under a
1  year, somebody with a 1-year contract.
and automatically expires
Yeah.
at
No,
your,
because of-
Assumption.
You can make it clear with that candidate
that
that
it's a.
Well, it's based on something.
Yeah.
If we're looking at the long-term picture and taking in things that are in the strategic plan or things we felt are important, like the PLC process and staff climate, and look at the open enrollment figures and why people are coming here. I mean, class size is on that survey up there. Good staff is on that survey. And part of the reason our staff is really good is we've seen, as this crew now has 3 at every level, that the staff climate has improved. And I think if you start taking teams and having to mix them and moving grade levels every year for the next 4 years, that staff climate's gonna dissipate. Along with the PLC process where they're now into their teams and they know how to work together. And I'm not saying that they're not capable, but I think it's much better. And our test scores have shown since we've added the 3rd teacher that we are closing that achievement gap. And 23 to me is 150% of our suggested. I mean, the board didn't come to 15 out of nowhere. I mean, there's some research that says 23 is just too many.
it's okay if I'm interjecting?
Sure.
Okay. I would be quiet. When I have given tours to families that come in, that is one thing when I say, why are you coming? You know, it's small class sizes. And I think other districts have that too, but it just seems to be pretty well known above another point.
That's supported by our open enrollment survey that we gave as well. It was one of the higher ranked reasons why people considered open enrolling in.
So then are you making money because you have, you're not making money, but are you bringing more dollars into the district because you have small class sizes? I don't know how you tease that out. That's something to consider too.
So go ahead.
In the first grade, Matt, do we have any built-in assistants now, just for the overload?
Yeah, we'll have one assistant.
And if we hire a third teacher, will we need that assistant?
Will we need that assistant? Yes, there is one student in there who does require aid support.
So it's a one-on-one?
Yeah.
It's her primary, it would be that aide's primary assignment, that one student.
Okay.
So you could try, according to the IEP, you could reduce that.
Which isn't that fairly consistent? I mean, we don't have assistants just to represent, you know, to work with a teacher. It is typically IEP or IEP linked, correct? Yeah. So I agree. I mean, that's the reason I got on the board is because in first grade, however many years ago, we did this to Owen's class, right? So I support getting high-quality teachers in lower class sizes. I do think that I filter things through the strategic plan, and trust is one of the really big components that we talked about. I have been here over the last few years, though, when we said we'll keep 3 teachers, and we hired, you know, Lynn, and we had 3 throughout. And then we did our little rejiggering, which I think has been really successful and great for our district. But I think we need to do a good job of explaining to the stakeholders in the community why we have, you know, Kimberly working in the way that she's working and why we might need this additional teacher. Because I think that there's a misconception that we just keep adding teachers and willy-nilly, because we enjoy spending money or whatever that notion is, and that's not true. And I do think that we just want to be really clear on why we're doing what we're doing and showing the benefit of having a really strong, you know, early.
And linking it back to the strategic.
Yep.
So our
Is our
decisions.
enrollment up this year total, overall?
It's hard to say, we still have one more enrollment period, but the number 360, I want to think, for some reason, 350 last year at the elementary, so we're up 10 at the elementary, 356, my enrollment specialist. So we're up 4 students at the elementary. To date, do you have any? It's hard to say at middle school, high school. Yeah, I will certainly report out after our registration period tomorrow. And we continue to get open enrollment applications in throughout the week as well as out. So that is an ongoing process that will fluctuate until we actually settle into the first day of school. So we're, you know, typically we've had a
Because some people just
declining.
show up, right?
They do, yes.
Yeah, they do. And it's good.
Yeah.
Matt, with Mrs. Diefenbach's position down there, intervention, you got good data now that we're a year into that?
Yes, I do. Looking at, I can't share specific scores, but I can share on the forward exam. For 3rd, 4th, and 5th, because intervention goes K-5, we didn't have any more than 5 kids in the minimal category, which is the lowest. And looking back on last year's tag, we've only done that test twice now, we had more than 5 in several areas. So what that tells me is they're getting those kids who are behind grade level of catching them up, and they were successful in that test. Also looking at the STAR assessment from fall to spring, and I guess they value that more from fall to spring. I think that 83% successful on the reading proficient, so that's 5 out of every 6 kids, and they made 20% growth. The last 3 years, we've had around 12 to 13% growth in reading. And I kind of attributed that to small class sizes, but then the classroom teachers working very closely with the interventionist, Mrs. Diefenbach, Mrs. Schrader, and really just using data to drive instruction instead of saying, I think these kids need help, saying, no, according to the assessments, this kid need help on this skill. And so, hard to say there's a correlation there, but it's hard to dismiss too. And I was pretty impressed.
Can you or the staff maybe, I'm curious on the increased, if there is any difficulty in identifying some of the students that need intervention within a 23 student class, or the one-to-one that may make that observation obvious that they need a little more time with the reading specialist.
Just knowing the history, Mrs. Roberts, the highest she's ever had for class size is 21 in first grade. I don't know what Penny's highest has been.
I know
one year, we started out very similar, and by Christmas, that might have been in second grade, we got up to 24, and that year they ended up hiring an intern partway through the year, just because.
And then in terms of, is it more challenging with more kids to identify those kids who need the support?
I think overall, I would say yes, just because obviously you're going to give the same major assessments, the same baseline assessments, so they're all going to have that, you're going to see that data. But then when you get to the individual part of the day, you know, where we're walking around conferencing with individual kids, you obviously can't get to them as quickly, so that's why we said we knew we definitely needed some sort of support, whether that be an additional teacher, more intervention time, more assistant time. You know, we obviously needed some extra support. We already had planned for the literacy support, so, you know, we were pretty confident that the mornings would go good, but then again in the afternoon, we weren't going to have that support. Kimberly was going to go back into intervention time with all the other grade levels, so we wouldn't have had her support in the afternoon, and there would have been a time block right after lunch where we would have had basically our making words, our word work activities, and then like they talked about at the end of the day was math. And actually at the end of the day, it kind of looks like the special ed support will be a pull-out math program, so we wouldn't have even had that person. So we knew we definitely were going to have to add support in the afternoon in some form.
Well, and I can speak on the other end of that from a child who wouldn't have qualified for interventions. That was a terrible year for him. I mean, according to his test, he was higher at the end of first grade than he was at the end of second, because he just was kind of bored. And they had a really hard time, you know, giving all of the kids what they needed to stay engaged and to stay challenged. So, just from perspective.
Can I say something? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. My son, he's gonna be in 6th grade now. He's now moving up to the middle school. And we officially had him diagnosed as dyslexic, and we took him to Madison, had him diagnosed, and I'm getting emotional. It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Mrs. Roberts and her classmates, because she wouldn't have seen it. And we knew there was something, but we couldn't put our finger on it, and if she didn't have the experience and the time to be able to see that in him and to say, Jen, we need to get him something, we gotta do something, it wouldn't have happened. And he would have slowly been lost, because he was one of those kids that would have just sat there and he would have slowly been lost. And he doesn't like to pretend, he doesn't ask questions. He likes to pretend he knows it all. And he would have just sat there and pretended to know it all. And if it wasn't for her seeing that, and 1st grade was such a crucial year for that. Because if we would have missed it, it would have been that much harder to bring him up to speed and for him to be ready for by the time he got to middle school to where he's getting those next steps. And I thank the school district for that. Because if it wasn't for that, I don't know where he would be right now. And I get comp for that. But hearing it, I'm getting all these what ifs in my head from when my son was in 1st grade.
Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. True story.
Starts with a motion.
I move that we post a position for a 1st grade teacher.
Motion by Lisa, second by Julie. And again, we post it 2 weeks, Luke, roughly.
We'd probably try to do a shorter time period, 7 to 10 days, and start to look at applicants, and we have a good pool. We'll keep it open until the quality candidates filled, or we decide to close and reopen it another time.
Is it possible or legal to contact your other finalists to see if they have interest? I don't know what the...
Yeah, we can let them know we're reposting another position and they can reconsider.
We go back at the list that you have with Alex.
Sorry, I have one more question, just some discussions that were happening. Just thoughts are, how do you get like a classroom ready that quickly when I know teachers have been comparing them for months now. They're so, where are we gonna put them, and then how long does it take you to figure out where all those other people go? And then lastly, one of the comments was, if it's a year contract versus a year probation, are you kind of weeding out some of the good ones who aren't in it for the short term, and you kind of want the person that wants to come and be here for a while and not scare them away with the contract like being a year? Would they maybe look elsewhere because, I don't know, just some thoughts I just want to make sure are considered. Again, not 100% mine, but.
It seems to me like there's a lot of variables and details that need to be worked out, but I think the board should not delay in authorizing the district to start hiring somebody.
So
I think that there's still more or less a month, and, I mean, I'm sure you can all
Even though it's this late, I think you're gonna be surprised at some of the quality candidates you're gonna get just because it is Mineral Point. And we've developed a pretty decent reputation, and there's a lot of people that wanna come and work here.
And I think teaching a teacher has skills, personality, organization, and there's a little bit of them that have this art of teaching and knowing kids and how to organize a classroom. And I think you have to trust that Matt knows how to hire.
So, I completely do, and that's why I love it here, but just curious, how long does the process usually take from application to hire? I mean, like, how long do you let them apply for, and then how long is the term to get them hired? And because I assume at this point, I mean, I go to registration tomorrow, and I'm going to get the teachers, and so they're all going to think they're in these classes, and then all of a sudden, at what point is it all going to branch out? Just curious, I 100% want it to happen, just kind of want an idea as a parent.
It's contingent upon the applicant pool and the quality of the applicants, so it's hard to give a definite timetable. At some point, we would have to look at, we're getting too close to school, we don't have quality applicants, we need to close the procedure and go into a plan with our existing staff. Or we would expedite a hiring if we had a good pool of quality applicants. And I don't think we would keep the posting open for the full 14 days before we start to review candidates. It would stay open until filled, and if we find a quality candidate, we would fill that position just as soon as we could.
So is it an option then if the pool stays open and we initiate adding aid to the teachers for the beginning of the year so they can all start off on the right foot, and then move them around or hire someone part-time until we get that figured out as almost like an intern or something?
We'll take all of that into consideration,
Okay.
and we'll unfold a good plan to make sure that the kids are well versed and ready for and the teachers involved. A wonderful supportive team of veterans that are going to support that third candidate, and they could come with their own wealth of understanding and experience about the classroom and may not need as much to transition. So I guess the best I can tell you is to be determined if this were to be approved.
You think it'd be likely, Luke, anybody from him would bid down?
There certainly are, as Matt alluded to, multiple candidates inside the district that are certified to teach elementary education that I think would be qualified. Whether they're interested or not would be to be seen. And there's certainly a good pool of applicants that we would certainly seem viable for a position such as this that were not hired in the last round. I'm optimistic.
Can you build a budget around a third and first grade teacher?
Certainly in a biannual budget, we can build a budget around an additional staff. In this budget coming up, we're right here at the end of school, some expenditures have been made, but I'm confident over a 2-year period we can settle into a budget that will stay balanced.
Okay.
We have a great group of subs as well. Would there be an option of starting out, if there's not a first grade teacher hired, to put 3 rooms out there and start with
a long-term sub.
someone else
It's a
in the
possibility
classroom
we
until
could
that
consider.
person is found?
If you don't hire somebody in the next 2 weeks, will we have another school board meeting and you present all the options so that the public can hear what the different options are and what's going to be done?
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the hire. Any other discussion? I will call a roll call.
Hay,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunma,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
action item, change of vote. Member Gunlock would like to change a vote taken in regards to the approval of the athletic handbook. And this is a new parliamentary procedure for the board, as we have not had a request to change a vote. So essentially a vote or a motion is made to change the vote. If a member were to second that vote, there would be a discussion, or I'm sorry, there would be no discussion. It's not something that's debatable. You would vote on that motion and second, and then that vote would change. I think in the minutes, if the approval of the handbook, I believe, was a 6-1 vote, if I remember correctly.
I'm looking.
Can Kelly give an explanation of why
She sure can. It just wouldn't be a part where we can debate that and have a conversation.
All right, go ahead.
You gotta make a motion that I can do it, somebody has to second it first, right?
Correct, yeah.
And this will not impact the outcome of the vote.
It would not impact the outcome of the
No.
vote. Correct.
I move that Kelly be able to change her vote.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. This did not come easy for me. I went home and couldn't sleep for a couple of nights. I had to reassess my vote. The victim kept coming into my head. I will not make this common practice, but it was very important to me that how I understood it, and I had a student or students in mind when I made this decision. So I'm going to read from this so it's clear why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, Note 4 says it's a change of vote and the conduct of the WIAA in Note 4 in the Minter Point Interscholastic Athletic Sports Manual. Note 4 says, victims of sexual assault and bystanders who report a sexual assault request emergency assistance, cooperate with and assist law enforcement and stay on the scene, or who encounter law enforcement at a medical facility at which the victim is being treated cannot be issued a code of conduct violation. The victim or bystanders must meet the state amnesty law requirements. The victim may not falsely claim amnesty knowing that the situation that he or she reports does not exist. I am changing my vote from yes to no. I am not speaking for the Minter Point School Board. I know this will not change the WIA policy in treating sexual assault. I also do not condone underage drinking. The first sentence of Note 4 is troubling to me. It suggests that the victim will not come forward because of the consequences of being at a party with alcohol involved. The consequences being not participating in a sport or sports or an activity. I believe that this is an insidious implication that this sexual assault wouldn't have happened if he or she wasn't drinking. That is not the case. The assault happened because someone took advantage of a person, and that someone is an abuser and asserted his or her power over another human being. I believe the victim is afraid to come forward because of fear and shame. Fear is the fear of retaliation from the abuser, his or her peers, and the community. This is called victim shaming. Shame is also involved in not coming forward. The victim is ashamed of the assault and may blame his or herself. The victim who is sexually assaulted is damaged physically and emotionally, not only by the assault, but by the way information was provided about his or her assault. Furthermore, the victim will have issues regarding trust the rest of his or her life. The athlete or student who reports or provides information gets a pass on being at the party and or for drinking, and no violation for breaking the conduct rules. The victim of the assault will be further damaged by knowing that this is how his or her fellow classmates helped him or her out. They got a pass. Doing the right thing and telling the truth means without an expectation of getting something in return, in this case, an athlete or student not getting a code violation. I believe true character development means owning up to one's mistakes. To get a free pass does not make an honest athlete or student, nor does it build character. I believe us as parents, coaches, teachers, administrators, and policymakers should not be teaching our children the art of the deal.
Thank you. It would be appropriate to call the question at this time.
Angie.
Hey,
I'm sorry, what?
So we are
Vote no other, change your vote.
going to let Kelly change her yes to a no.
On that part.
I, yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Bush,
Abstain.
Dolphin.
Yes.
Does she vote no? Yes, okay. Stefas.
What did you say?
I abstained on the original vote,
Okay.
so I'm just gonna abstain on the change of the vote.
All right. No.
Motion carries 4-1-1.
Thank you, Kathy. Approval of youth options.
Mr. Polskill is here to join us with requests for youth options. I have shared a DPI rule with the board as well as an application that was received. Applications are initiated by a student and or parent. Once it reaches the district's level, then we act on that and we look to see if there's comparable courses and the credits received. In your board packet, that would be on page 56 if you're looking for that application and or DPI rule. There is a request for youth options for the spring semester to attend UW-Platteville, and 4 courses that were requested to be taken. The comparable course offered, we have checked the no box on the 4 courses: math, calc, and analytic geometry, general chemistry, general biology, and intermediate Spanish, in that the student has exhausted all of our course offerings, and we do not see them as a comparable offering to the Apex Learning Experience. Each one of these, if they were approved for high school credit, would earn an additional 1 credit of high school credits for a total of 4. And that request is before the board for approval. If approved, then we would attach a board signature and then forward this on to UW-Platteville for final consideration.
I move that we approve the request.
Motion by member Hay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by member Stevenson. Discussion?
How do we determine that the AP Chem or AP Biology or AP Calc is not comparable to a Gen Ed at UW-Platteville?
We're not sure we can do an apples-to-apples comparison because advanced placement courses are not the same as dual enrollment courses or courses offered at the university. It's a high school course that's offered with a college-like syllabus that's available for testing, but I might relate back to Andy and or Mitch to fill in any holes. The question being, how can we share that there is or isn't a comparable course when we have an AP offering versus a college course youth options offering or comparable dual enrollment?
Yeah, probably the easiest way to answer that would be the pace of a college course. And then it comes, obviously, a year-long course would be compressed in a college level, essentially, so there's a little more rigor in that aspect, I believe.
Plus then the credit options, with the AP, it's all contingent on the exam score, and some universities don't accept the 3-day, they look for 4 in a particular curricular area, where here, if it's, you pass the class, you're getting 3 college credits.
This is the first time, Andy, that we've ever had a student interested in youth options.
We've had students do CNA at Southwest Tech a handful of times, which is an offering that we don't obviously have.
Sure.
The certified nurse.
Considered the same then? The CNA course? I mean, is it called youth options?
Yes.
It is, all right. Okay. I just gotta ask financial implications with this.
As far as how youth options works?
Yeah.
Okay, I can read a quick little summary.
Sure.
And there's probably more detailed information, but this is a good way to look at it, I think. Essentially, there's no limit on the number of credits or courses a student can take through youth options each semester. Institutions of higher ed are defined under youth options statute as the University of Wisconsin system, which would be UW-Platteville, technical college system, or private institutions like Edgewood or comparable college in the Wisconsin private college system. Under youth options, a student does not pay for a college course if the school board determines the course qualifies for high school credit and is not comparable to a course already offered in the school district. If approved by the board, the student can receive both high school and college credit upon successful completion of the course. So essentially, if we aren't offering a comparable course in our district, that's an opportunity for students to take that course with the school board paying for it. The school paying for it.
You know, some schools spend their money, have a whole host of AP courses taught, and that's not, I mean, we have some. But this is a way to retain the kids that are your highest performing kids, and to offer them something when they're juniors and seniors. And correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have a policy that says that this is something we offer, youth options?
Yeah.
I vaguely recall that we did have some kids who did this a few years back, that took computer courses at Platteville, for example. So I think it's an important benefit that we offer the students.
It's also something that was approved at the July board meeting, where we annually share our performance report, and at the options that are available for students, along with our standards that are used for the ongoing year, and youth options was one of those that the board approved as a recognizable option for students in education at Middle Point.
I not only think we should approve it, but I think we should promote this. I think it's something that all the kids should know about. You know, that when they get, you know, if they exhaust all the offerings in Mineral Point and they plow right through all that stuff, you know, if you're very gifted in math, you take all those math classes, this is a way for you to continue and to stay with your class, and, you know, rather than graduating early.
I agree. Shriefers, you in the back there, is there anything you want to add?
Just appreciate your consideration.
Okay. Thank you. All right, is there any other discussion? Roll call again.
Hi, I'm Amanda Heisner, I'm the GT facilitator. And with permission from Shriefers, I'd just like to share a little bit of the background so that you guys have some context. We've been talking about this as part of Hawkins' plan for well over a year. So this isn't something that just kind of came up. The pieces are kind of falling together. But he has been, you know, he's one of those kids that's taken advantage of all of those opportunities that we've had here. So I just want you to know that there's some planning that goes into that, some thought. It isn't something that just kind of comes together. So I just want you to kind of understand sort of some of the background that they've been through, and his involvement and his initiating this and his requesting to find ways to continue to further his education. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to support kids.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Haig?
Yes.
Stevenson?
Yes.
Bush?
No, and I'll qualify quickly. I think the student in question is a great student. I don't like the implication of a precedent for the gen eds in question as youth options in place of the AP courses we have.
Dolphin?
No.
Steffes?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed Gunlaw, sorry.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Education for Employment, E for E, and ACP is Academic Career Plan. So again, only education can throw more acronyms in one sentence than anything. Andy is here to talk about a new requirement that needs board action taken, and it's on your academic and career planning as part of the PI 26 law. As of September 1st, 2017, all schools need to have a board-approved action plan for transitioning to academic and career planning. Andy's here to share that this is not something new to us, even though the deadline is here and upon us. It is something that he has been working with and transitioning with for a while now. So Andy, I have loaded up the board packet with the information you shared, so the board's had a chance to preview, but why don't you give us a summary and then answer any questions they might have.
Okay, so academic career planning, as Luke kind of alluded to with my comments to him about it, has been going on in Mineral Point since I've been here, and it's going on in my career as a school counselor throughout all 15 years at this point in time. Essentially what it is It is identifying students' interests, abilities, and skill sets, and helping them link to career possibilities, college options, and course selection to kind of make those career applications or the aspirations that they have come into play. With the ACP plan that you have read, or that is presented there within your handbook or your information, I took a course that was through the Academic and Career Planning Conference that the DPI held at Memorial Terrace this past December. And the course was actually through UW Stout. And the PI 26 has 9 questions to answer. And all those questions, as I went through them, were answered without having to do a lot of extra work besides putting it on paper. They would identify things that are happening and that we are doing within the district for each of those questions and items. One thing that we're spending a lot of time on right now with moving forward as far as the community involvement is getting our local businesses more involved with the school. And one tool for that is career cruising. And previously we were using Wisconsin Career Pathways, which was a free career college website. Career cruising used to have a fee to it. The state of Wisconsin has allowed career cruising to be at no cost to any district that wants it. And so obviously it's a little more depth than Wisconsin Career Pathways, so we jumped at the chance to bring that in, especially at no cost. And within career cruising, that's essentially where each student's academic and career plan is housed. There are different sections for skills assessments, interest inventories, for students to kind of get a little more understanding of maybe areas that they should be looking for employment in, or areas that would be of interest to them. I think that's something that we don't do very often in the classroom setting, is maybe provide students to think about their skill set, their strengths, their interests. Because I speak with them at our small group and individual meetings, some kids look at me with a real blank stare. What are your strengths? And they, like, I don't know. But it's really easy to look into if you start asking some simple questions and they take them as interest inventories. Then they're able to pick and choose career areas by the career clusters that are provided nationally, and then look at the career pathways in those career clusters. Further, then you link through career cruising into college information. And while I had the Wisconsin colleges right within career pathways, we were always able to go out and find schools across the nation and dig into that individually. And career cruising is helped by linking colleges from any state in the union and all the offerings that they have and their courses, so kids can kind of plan what they should take in high school to prepare for taking engineering, for example, courses and the math concepts and things that they would at college. So in a nutshell, it's essentially what I do with the students from grades 6 through 12 in this building, begin looking at career options and ideas and course planning and their strengths and interests at 6th grade, and obviously fine-tuning that as they get to be high schoolers ending junior and senior year. So, any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
How many hours do you spend with the typical senior, Andy?
We do 2 classroom meetings, which is 45 minutes that I should say, individual meetings. I went to my office twice, once to application in September, and again, just to double check a lot of things as we get into February and March. I do multiple classroom options with them in terms of FAFSA, financial aid aspects, scholarships, and college information. So I would say per student, like a senior, as you asked for specifically, I would say 3 to 4 hours.
Okay, all right.
Within a school year.
So you can break it in steps. First is kind of a career path choice,
right,
and then the scholarships, and picking out the college. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, identifying their career interests and then understanding what type of college they need to go to, what degrees they need to satisfy, moving on potentially to grad school. Just understand the whole process of how do I get from here to there.
You find yourself running out of time? You think there's enough time to handle?
I think more time would be nice.
Let's layer on that insight piece that we've had meetings with local business people. Andy's been in the chamber and he's had business leaders here to try to get kids to understand that, okay, I can go off and be an engineer, go off to college somewhere to be an engineer. I can come back to Mineral Point and live in Mineral Point because I might be able to get a job with Wisconsin Power and Light, or I might be able to drive to Platteville and get a job at Delta because of being an engineer, I don't have to move to Chicago or Milwaukee, so another aspect of this career planning and academic planning is this additional layer, this program that's being offered that we're trying to get local businesses to buy into. So, I mean, he's really done a lot in that aspect too, that, hey, if we can get our kids to go out and get diplomas and come back here and realize I can live here and have the job that I really wanted, but, you know, we're trying to provide that opportunity as well.
Do you have a checklist, either Mitch or Andy, like a master checklist or a master plan, so it alleviates possible things falling through the cracks, such as deadlines? So I'm just asking, because you know this is very important to these kids, especially the juniors and seniors. I mean, you're really the last person that they talk to before they leave this building and choose a career. Of course.
Yeah. The deadlines, as far as like college application, that can be pending and changed, but.
Right, scholarships, courses, schedules. I mean, there's a lot on your plate, I can understand. And dealing with 50 to 60 kids that are really kids in any one given class. That's why I asked if there's enough time.
I have a question, Amy. What would you have done with a student like me? I mean,
Well,
I
that's a
really
tough
care.
one.
Or change your major when you got into college, like
No,
that?
I didn't go to college till I was 30, and I've had many jobs, and I'm very skilled. I mean, I can cut hair, I can,
I would let you, I would try to let you drive that. And I would try my best to get you to help me
because,
point in the right direction.
because, you know, at some point I would feel like, you know, I'm going to a trade school. And I'd be like, no, I'm in high school for a lot of reasons. I'm here for social, I'm here for academic, I'm here for sports, I'm here for activities. And I don't think I'm an anomaly. I think there are students out there like that. That middle of the road student, I think it's easy to channel students who are gifted and are driven, but there's a lot of kids who are just, figuring it out.
The way I like to angle in that regard is, what is your purpose here? That's kind of what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
What was your purpose? And with things that are especially going on today, it's easier to point to a purpose. I think everyone, when you're looking at life in general, you're trying to save time and you're trying to save money, if that makes sense. So then it's why are academics important? Because I can be saving, by doing well in school, I can be saving time as I'm looking at the career routes I'm going into by maybe testing into various higher courses, not having to take as many college courses, or especially not having to do remediation. And that's saving you money at the same time in terms of your tuition. But the question really is, what are you interested in? And career cruising has so many layers of career options within each pathway. And I think it's just a matter of identifying, hey, what are those 2 to 5 things or more that maybe students have that could lead to careers? And allowing them to have time to explore it and find something that sounds kind of fun.
Or jobs, the interim job.
I've been with him when he's asked 1 or 2 questions. 1, your mom and dad gonna let you stay at home the rest of your life? Or are you gonna wanna do something that you can live on your own?
Where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be?
And 2, do well now so that you're not shutting doors, so that if 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road you decide, I am gonna go to Southwest Tech, you have as much skill as we can provide you. So I know he's had those kind of conversations with kids who maybe don't have a college plan in mind, or I don't have a career, but this interests me now. What can I do with this when I leave here in May? So those conversations take place too.
Are those interests identified soon enough in those students? Instead of senior, are they identified as a freshman?
I think some are identified in 6th grade, but then that is going to rotate and change, and sometimes the kids learn about things as they are experiencing coursework and are exposed to things. So I think it's a process. The ACP in general is a kind of a fluid process.
Thank you.
Is there anything new in this ACP program than we've been doing?
I think the community aspect is the one area that was our weakest, which is why we focused on that this past year. Otherwise, it's essentially what I've been doing as a school counselor for my career. Helping students identify needs, interests, and their path and their plans.
And now it's a requirement that the school board approves something. It's now become a requirement.
Just this year?
Yeah, it's September 1, it needs to be approved by this September.
I move that we approve the ACP action plan.
Second.
Is that the? That's right.
So a motion by Lisa, second by Andy. Kelly, you ready?
Sure.
Any other discussion?
I'm sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Come back, Andy.
Thanks. Thanks for coming tonight, appreciate it.
Back to the agenda.
The next is the approval of the FAST program, page 69 of your board packet if you're looking for information. The FAST program is Families and Schools Together, and it's an acronym that helps kids succeed by building stronger relationships with the family. And it is a program that I was tuned into at the Wisconsin Rural Schools Alliance, and was found to be successful. The mission statement's on the first page, but I would move you to page 69. It kind of gives you a quick overview. There's various age groups, and essentially we're working at the elementary school level only, which is our pre-K through 5. And the paragraph underneath gives you a quick overview of the elementary level, but essentially what it does is provide support for parents to become a better authority in their class or in their home by making connections with their kids at an early age, and kind of trying to reduce that social isolation that happens in schools by working with families to transition into school and forging those connections with family and community. If you move forward to page, there's an elementary breakout that's a little bit more in depth on page 72. And it gives you just the elementary school level program at a more in-depth level. And the second paragraph kind of lays out what the program is. It's an 8-week program. And every evening the parents begin with participating in some activities as a family union. So you bring in your entire family, husband, wife, all of the kids, and there's a kind of an opportunity to do some family-based activities that then transition into more of a targeted program with just the child that's in the FAST program. They come together and they do some focused one-on-one time to try to enhance those family interactions with school personnel and really build relationships and build community around a group of families that are in this program so that they're coming through the program together. And then they reinforce the importance of the family unit and trying to get into a routine and rhythm of how to connect with the resources that are in your schools. And as we move forward, as a group of parents become FAST participants, they then will give back to the program in future years to try to help newer parents coming into the district or existing parents that might be struggling to connect with the school on how to utilize the resources. So often we have parents that are engaged because maybe they have the time or the knowledge or the experience on how to engage, and essentially they know how to beat or play the system in schools. They know how things work, they know how to get things done, they know how to connect with teachers or resources. There's often a group of parents that because of either work commitments or just a lack of understanding of how schools operate that don't have the ability to engage or get to that depth of understanding about how to navigate through all of the different pieces that go along to raising a child in an educational system. So this is a program that really tries to bridge that gap. It works on the family, mental, social wellness components to bridge that community gap that we see oftentimes with some of our most challenging families. So.
And this is a potential cost of $20,000?
It states that in the first year there's certainly some training in its first wave, but a lot of that is offset because there is a family meal that comes in and is part of this process, and so they budget that in as part of that $20,000 budget. We are going to be able to bring local resources to the table to find hopefully partnerships and community partnerships that would offset the cost of a meal or help to subsidize the cost of a meal. And with our own catering on site, I think we can bring those costs down significantly. But they're building in a worst-case scenario that if you're putting together a family meal for 8 to 10 families with all of their kids and siblings and so forth as part of the initiation to trying to grow together and build relationships, they recognize that as a cost to the program. But typically the program after year one is in that $7,000 to $10,000 range. And again, that's for the training, the evaluation of the program, working closely with people in the FAST group that have found success in this. This is a program that has been reproduced with many successes and evidence-based across the country. Matt, I see your hand up.
Do you have any questions about, we used to have it in my prior school.
And was your district poorer than ours?
Yes.
Okay. I have some feelings about this. I think we are getting to a social part of family that public school does not have any business in. I think that this should be parent-directed and not school-directed. We talked about at one of our off-site meetings about Parent Teachers Association, and I'm still researching that and trying to get, you know, parents involved in that. I'm sorry I haven't done it fast enough, but I'm still doing that. And I think that something like this should be directed by parents. I think what's happened is that we talk about community involvement. We talk about, you know, all these other involvements, and there still isn't a representation by parents who can partner with teachers and other parents that they can see what their needs are in the community and in their school and in their families and their neighbors. So this is getting a little wonky area for me. I think it may be good for a poorer district or a poorer county, but I don't think it's anything that I'm comfortable with diving in.
Do you think we'd have any participate in the loop?
I do. I think it's a missing segment. We don't have an active parent-teacher connection at this current time. PEP has not fulfilled a role that I think is missing. It's one of the largest strategies that came out of our strategic planning is building community partnerships and trust. And I think part of building trust is empowering parents to connect with the school and connect with their community. And the parents that we would be serving are parents that innately don't have that ability to connect or don't know how to connect. They've never been given the tools to connect with school. And so we'd be working with populations of families that need this connection more than any. And as we build that capacity through these 8-week sessions, we start to touch more and more families. So we start with a limited pool, but as that pool grows, those families grow up into the middle school and high school, we just are going to increase our overall capacity to reach our community. So this is just one component of, I think, many that would enhance and help our community engagement and connect parents with schools in a way that we haven't been able to reach in the previously.
How would you reach these
Yeah, how would you
isolated,
identify?
how would you get these isolated parents to participate in an 8-week program?
And I think it's a judgment thing too. And then you're going to get the social aspect that these parents are singled out. I think that parents and the community and whomever I'm talking to should seriously consider starting a parent-teachers association and then build on that. I think that this comes after the parent-teachers association, and maybe parents could focus more on making their voice heard. I don't think we need to make this decision and this cost at this time without at least examining if parents want to do a parent-teachers association. And I say that in place of PEP because an association has a built-in organization. And so there isn't just whoever volunteers to do it the next year. So Shelley, Rose is no longer doing it. She has no one in the line to replace her, but a parent-teachers association would do that. And within that association, I would hope parents would reach out to all parents on all levels. And
just to, Kelly, I on a totally unrelated note reached out to Angela Drain because I was updating the website and I wanted to get the most current info from PEP because I had heard like bunch of different things, like totally defunct, not doing anything. Then I heard that they still have a board, and she said that they're hoping to revamp the group this year. And she said she's hoping to get PEP back up and running again.
Well, I would like to
So-
I would like to have parents aware of Parent Teachers Association and what their services can provide other than PEP.
So I
Because
think,
in the
my
past-
point is, I think that, I don't know about two different organizations. I think this would be a good time to have a conversation with
With them.
Angela and what
And then-
is, yeah, so I just want to make you aware that it's
Okay.
not on according to her, so.
Okay, good, thank you.
Matt was going to address the question that was posed about how you engage parents that maybe don't want to.
Yeah, I can explain the process just to Kelly's point. PTOs are great, and I think they can do a lot of good things for schools. This is something very different than a PTO. It's not, it can make some of those connections, but it, like Luke was saying, it doesn't educate families who need that kind of support to support themselves. So I just wanted to address that. To the point of finding families, what we did is we had a social worker in our school, or a counselor can do the same thing. And we recognized families who we've had to call about certain issues or just for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're just down on their luck, maybe they're struggling to make ends meet. Just many, many different issues, but we invite them and we make it very respectful and just say, this is just a program we're offering. If you'd like to come join us, other families will be joining you. It's 8 weeks, we provide a free meal. We just talk about parenting skills that you might want to employ. The kids are then go somewhere else to have time together. In the 2 years we did it, we did not have one family, from what I remember, offended that we would even ask them that, or after the program, be upset that they went through it. In fact, they would reach out to other parents and say, you need to join this. The reason we got rid of it was the funding issue. We were in severe declining enrollment. We just couldn't support a full-time social worker. But I would say, just from my experience, sitting in and part of FAST and having that actual experience, it was one of the best things we did in our school. And I know we don't have a high level poverty here. Our school is at 70%, but you do have families in poverty. You do have families that could, so even though we don't have a high one, doesn't mean those families would eminently benefit from that support. And it's an investment in the families versus staffing or things like that. So you're not adding staffing, it's really having that training to make sure that we don't create situations where it might be embarrassing or things like that. So just from my personal experience prior to school, I found many benefits.
And we did increase FTE for Carla Rand's position from 0.8 to 1.0, and it was implied at that time that would be with oversight of the FAST program. But because the FAST program itself is over 5,000, it triggered me as saying that would need pre-approval by the board, even though I thought it was implied, and this gives us an opportunity to have that conversation explicitly. I think what I would piggyback off of Matt on is that the PTOs don't try to get in and significantly improve the behavior of the child or the emotional well-being of the child, or trying to connect or engage them around their academic performance. They're more geared for other roles and responsibilities, and this is really trying to get to the social and emotional wellness of the family and connecting them to the school, and I think that's a piece that we're just missing. And so Carla would specifically give the time that it needs to oversee this program. So, other questions, and then I think we just need to decide if this is right for
Will many of them start and then drop out?
No, from what I remember, all of them finished. One of the powerful things about it, and in fact, it was funny because Luke was the one that shared it with Carla and us. I didn't even bring it up, and I just said, "Oh yeah, I remember that." I think that's it was really powerful. But the networks that they would create with each other was probably one of the biggest benefits. They had people who they could now call if something, if they're out of gas or whatever, but they didn't feel so isolated, so they could connect with these other families to support one another. So it wasn't just invested in that, it was really creating some pretty strong ties within these families But no, I don't recall anyone dropping out.
I really like the objective of this, you know, reaching out to the families that may feel disconnected. I like that idea. I'm not sure that I'm loving the structure of this, and I think Kelly's raising some points that have some validity. Is there another way to address this without spending $20,000 and to achieve this purpose without enrolling in this program?
Well, and you know, $20,000, I mean, that's not my issue, but I think it's an overreach into the family. I think it's an overreach.
I just wanted to address, the actual contract is just over $6,000 for the initial training and implementation, and then there's additional fees that come back with some evaluation, but this services small rural schools as well as large urban districts, and so the program is just, you're taking the canned number of 20,000 that would service like inner city Madison, and the meals that would go along with bringing kids across multiple
Okay,
elementaries
so
together.
your number's actually 6. I took it from the document.
Yeah, no,
that
that's
was
fair,
attached.
that's fair. I just didn't
Okay.
want to misrepresent that this is a, you know, I would agree that the price point would justify something like this.
Yeah.
I have not seen anything similar to this approach that is trying to engage the family on it's the whole, not just the whole child, but the whole family unit, and trying to connect them to school. It's unique, and I think this has been around, I think since, it's a while, I can't remember the year. Proven in schools. Matt's personal testimony was what really put me over. I was really looking at it as something that I thought was just a missing component in our school district that I think would help to build those relationships.
Is it being done in any other local schools here?
Not in local schools like Southwest
Surrounding?
Wisconsin,
Yeah,
I guess.
surrounding schools?
I have not asked that. I don't know that.
Just Kelly, just from my experience, no parent felt like we were overreaching, just from my experience. And maybe that someone did make that comment that I wasn't aware of. I wasn't leading the program, but I did not get any complaints to my office saying, you know, how dare you
Right,
get
right.
involved. So just food for thought.
Who would we train, Matt?
It would be Carla, would be the trainer. She is also a licensed, or she was a social worker at one time, so she has that experience, as well as being a counselor.
Could it be do you have to have a certification in counseling, or could it be a teacher?
I think my only experience is that a social worker or counselor did it.
Okay.
So if Carla were to do this as an additional duty for her, correct?
This would be part of her full-time. She was 8/10 full-time equivalency last year. She's now a full-time school
Yes, but
counselor.
we didn't hire her because she was gonna do this.
Yes, we did.
That's
We
what you
did?
said.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
And part of, she would be the lead, that would be the liaison between the two, but it is very tight in their contract that you have to have a team of people that address this, and that team includes a lead teacher, it would include 2 community members, and 1 person that would be in the community that would be in charge of maybe recreational programs or library programs or so forth. So it's truly a community approach. It's not just driven by the school. And if any one member of that team drops out and the core doesn't stay there, you have to go through the retraining with the entire team again. So it's very important. They iterate the importance of having this community-based team stay together. And then once you go through the first cycle, 2 of those parents that go through the cycle become part of the team and also lead and facilitate further meals and further discussions and further methods around building up students' behaviors, academics, emotional well-being.
So after the first year, the $6,000 training, what do you expect fee would be for year 2, 3, 4?
Similar, but less. It wouldn't be the full 6,000 because the training piece would go, there might be some retrainings for new members that come onto the team. There's still an evaluation component to make sure that as they come in, that the program is being run with the fidelity that it needs to be. You can't just loosely throw together a meal and call it a bonding time. It has to have a curriculum that's embedded within it that actually walks parents and families through some in-depth strategies to address how we raise kids today and how they behave and interact with schools as well as family members.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So are these only families who have, interacting with other socioeconomic families, I mean, of their level, it's not an intertwining of,
We would bring in guest speakers, community guest speakers, for example. So in my last school, we had a larger student population of Hmong students. So one day we had a grandfather come in and to teach the kids, some of the families who were Hmong, just part of their culture and history.
that's a cultural mix. I'm talking about economic.
Meaning are all the
Or
families.
being, so there's not, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, not, I know that this will help lower economic families. Is there any reason to believe that other levels of, will need help in this partnering?
Possibly.
Absolutely. I think it's not based on, and there's no place where we look at income of family to determine who is or is not in this program. It's really trying to connect based on the social, emotional wellness of the child and those kids that may have a need or a family that has a need, to try to help make those connections for the betterment of all of the student successes. So there could be behavior issues in the classroom that parents just don't know how to address at home or how to partner with the schools. It could be they're failing academically and there's really no good reason for it. They're a fully capable child. It could be somebody that just emotionally doesn't feel engaged or connected and doesn't want to be at school. These are not traits that are specific to kids in poverty. These are traits that are encompassing all families of all incomes. And it's, again, trying to re-engage them with strategies that help them find and build the supports in schools to be successful.
Well, it's kind of misleading then, because they show a black student, they show another black student, they show another multicultural student. I mean, it doesn't show, anyone that looks like.
Poverty doesn't translate color either.
No, but that's what they show on their brochures, so, I'm kind of questioning that also. I just do not want this to be people who think that lower economic people need more help than the middle or the higher, there's not anybody in that class here, or economic class, but I guess that's part of it, that I want to make sure that all economic people are addressed at this, not just people who are poor, because, believe me, there's a lot of people who are afraid of poor people.
When we invited families, we didn't look at their free-reduced status. We just knew they might have a need and an interest in joining the group. And that was really it.
So you had all economic levels?
I can't say whether we did or not, because we didn't check that.
Okay.
And I didn't
Well,
know.
you can talk a bit.
It's hard for me to see a kid who's poor, which I can't.
No, I mean the parents, not the kid. You're talking about parents here too.
How long has this program been in existence?
Quite some time.
1988.
So then, is it possible to table this and look into it further? And
That's the board's desire. The hope was about a month ago to start to set up training so that we could launch that first 8-week session in the first trimester of school, so we can actually see the benefits and the gains, and possibly run a second 8-week session in the spring based on those outcomes. So we've increased our capacity of number of families that we've reached. So delaying only delays the implementation and or the ability to put 2 8-week sessions together.
this is the first time this has been on the board's agenda, right?
It has, I think the FAST program literature has been in previous agendas. It's the first time it's an action item.
Yeah.
When do they meet? What night?
That would be something that we would coordinate with families to find their availability.
I want to make it clear, I'm not opposed to this. I want to know the impact of it and who's included, and if, we are overreaching, I have a fear of that.
I think the training really impresses them.
Okay.
And they really are cognizant of those concerns that you share, and they teach the trainers how to be kind of, just real sensitive to that.
It's at night though, usually?
Yeah, evenings when parents are able to attend with their full families.
If we do decide to pursue it, I would think a review in 1 year to see how it goes.
I would agree.
I agree, Larry.
It has to be back in front of us next
Yes,
year for
yes.
approval.
And we need to know progress at maybe 6 months too and see how it's, what the participation is, and Carly can give feedback or whomever.
Well, yeah, well, I think that too, I mean, from a progress perspective too, we need to know what she's hoping to achieve at the start too, to really understand. I mean, I see that there's specific outcomes that they talk about in here, but.
Is she aware that she has to do this tonight? And she's agreed to it?
Yeah.
2 to 3
So
hours a night?
we got a buy-in with Carl, right?
Yes, we have buy-in.
Is she partnering, or maybe she probably does anyway, but, I mean, it reminds me a lot of like WIC and Head Start's advisory committee. I mean, they do this already, so I just wonder if she partners with them, or.
You mean with like social services?
Yeah, right, yes.
You mean currently?
I don't think so.
Sure. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to ask Carl.
Yeah, I know, WIC and Head Start.
I do for,
Um,
you guys kind
I know.
of, we talked about it 3 weeks ago.
I know, I'm torn on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where, those programs are, this program's pretty proactive,
I think we can.
so it might,
I think so.
yeah, I can't.
So do you want to table it, Lisa, or
Well,
should
no,
we-
I don't know, I mean, I think Larry's saying he would like a vote on it tonight, that he thinks we should, I don't know why I'm speaking. for
I
him.
would
This one's a night for you?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Go ahead. Larry, go ahead, Larry.
with a 1 year rollout, has to be back in front of us in a year. And we'll get a 6-month review.
And know what her goals are and,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I would like, I mean, I would like, her anticipated outcomes are gonna be.
I like what you've done so far, Matt, at the elementary school. And this is going on your word. You support this,
I support
and
it.
you'll make it work.
We will do our best.
Is Carla still just elementary, or is she middle school as well?
No.
Just elementary, okay, I just,
Still elementary, we don't have Carly anymore.
sorry, Vicki.
Andy doesn't have a lot of time. There he said it.
I mean, I'll just call it, I mean, what I'm struggling with is it sounds familiar to programs that I don't know if there's a long, I mean, it benefits some, but I don't know that there's long-term impacts always in programs like this. The other thing too is I feel like as a parent who's got a middle schooler and a high schooler now, I've never felt more disconnected from my school district. I felt great at the elementary school. There was a ton of community and relationship building opportunities with teachers and parents and guidance counselors and things like that. And maybe it's me. It could be. It could maybe benefit from having
But that's
someone
when you
intervene.
were,
But
on the PEP crew back in elementary school, and that's kind of.
I don't know yes, I mean, I was on the PEP, but I was also, there was barn dances, and there was meet your teacher nights, and there was a lot of stuff that,
We have meet your teacher night.
yeah, I don't want to know your teachers.
Well, and what's also hard is
Sorry, Brett.
that also maybe because
You
there's
come
not
to
rites of
Congo.
passages for
That's
students.
coming up.
I think the elementary school does a really good job of engaging parents and trying to build community. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do this. I just think, I wonder, since there are other tracks, if there's opportunities there to keep people engaged. I mean, that's why PEP isn't successful. Parents sort of age out of it. Their little kids go to middle school and, they don't need to supply kits anymore, and they don't see them at so you sort of age out of it. So
But
that's,
isn't it some of that the natural progression?
Absolutely.
I think so,
Because-
well, and
yeah.
it's a cultural thing that there's not a rites of passage anymore for a lot of students because they have everything at their fingertips. So there's not I mean, I'm gonna date myself, but, huh?
You would say something about paper?
No. I was gonna say like powder puff football, or like when you asked the guys to a dance and you had dances. There's not that kind of thing going on anymore because it's culturally changed. So there's not a parent involvement that you would know what that there's a powder puff football game, or there's a dance where the girls ask to, what's that called?
City Hall.
Yeah, sorry, I'm dating myself.
I just think,
But that was a rites of passages for students.
I think as we talk about building trust within our community, if 5th grade is sort of our peak of where we engage students and families, and then it slowly trails off, we should probably continue to expect our taxpayers don't want to invest in the schools, and that people will not want to run for school board, because if you're, as the oldest person in the school, just itching to get out and don't really feel connected, why invest, why vote, why run, why do these things? So I just wonder if we need to keep engagement high all the time, throughout
Then you have
12
to
grades.
determine what
Well, see,
kind of rites and
I would-
passages kids want.
I kind of have to disagree with you on that, because once kids get into middle school and they start actively participating in competitive sports, like Tuesday, Thursday, and then you try to do something and say, hey, you know, I really want to try to get a group together on Wednesday night. Oh, God, that's my one free night of the week. That's the one night we can have supper as a family. And there's a lot going on at night. And kids in middle school, you know, they start getting a little more independent, and then when they get into high school, they're busy 6 nights a week.
Yep.
Would you do
I
that?
agree,
Yeah.
and then meanwhile, though, we are asking Andy Paulskill, how you doing?
Yeah.
We're really busy. If we're, I believe, if we're empowering parents and kids to make sure that they're following a checklist, Andy Paulskill doesn't feel like he's drowning and getting all of it done.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
It's, everybody's really busy. I just wonder sometimes if we're all busy on the right things all of the time, and if we have culturally allowed everybody to be too busy to be engaged in academics and in school.
I think we're ready to move on.
Would this progress with one family only?
I know there'll be multiple families in that first 8-week session.
You have to have 3 or 4 anyhow.
Yeah.
It may be elementary based and maybe a child, but they're gonna be, like there were siblings at the older levels, so, we don't, just limit it to that one child.
I think there may be some value here in investing in enrollment as well, as word gets out amongst the families that are involved to their friends in other districts. It may become an internal recruiting tool if it's successful after year 1. And obviously year 1, you're not going to have that factor, but as we're looking at ways to increase enrollment, the more involvement you get with all the facets of, you know, the community, the better. And I like the community partners and the school partner. But I also agree with you, we need to do better at 5 through 12 enrollment there also.
I move that we approve the FAST program.
Can we put a limit on it? 6,000?
For 1 year?
It's a 1-year renewal, and I consider it a pilot. We've tried a lot of things, most of them work, sometimes they don't. I'll be the first to abandon it if it's not successful and we can't engage parents, but you know, we gotta try something.
I was talking dollar amounts too, so that's the 6,000 on it.
The contract's already written. I would not put a dollar limit on it, only because there's going to be those other costs around meals. We don't know how many are going to be donated versus those that we're going to have to supply. So that's part of the unknown. I mean, we're going to work with our community partnerships to get a lot of this donated, but it starts with building community around food.
This will be through the school year mostly, or summer mostly?
Mostly the school year. Fall, winter, we should be able to give you a mid-year report in January, let you know the first session year.
So we got a motion, we need a second?
Second.
Second, Kelly. The roll call, Angie.
Hay?
Yes.
Stevenson?
Yes.
Bush?
Yes.
Dolphin?
Yes.
Gunlaw?
Yes.
Stefas?
Yes.
Is there a way, Matt, or
Good talk.
that we could maybe get now that this is in place, or maybe after training, a report out on, checking out, you know, what she was talking
Anticipated
about?
outcome.
Maybe just a small report from Carla, so we know what the goals are, so that we can assess the goals in 6 months.
Middle school social studies textbooks.
We have a request for upgrading our middle school textbooks. The narrative is here, and our teacher, Mr. McGraw, is here as well. Previous book, just a quick overview, printed in 2001, and this is a civics-based book, so it is dated when it talks about referencing aspects like campaign finance reform from 1996 that no longer applies. There's other examples here for you as well. It'd be a great opportunity for us to bring in a more current resource that would allow for additional opportunities for assessment and engagement with our students. And so I would recommend approval of upgrading the middle school social studies text. Brett, you're here, I think, still. Thank you for hanging in there. Anything you would like to just put in addition to the, I appreciate the write-up because that really helped to frame it for us. Anything that you would add, or Vicki?
Who wrote that for you?
It took me more than I wish it had taken me, but, the previous book, not only being printed and, or published in 2001, literally falling apart. Like kids, not just the regular wear and tear. Like, we had 3 sections in the 7th grade last year because of the large class. And the 3rd class had like the bottom of the barrel. Some of them didn't even have covers on them. Pages were falling off. I mean, it was pretty skid row stuff. And I was embarrassed that they had to use that for that. This is my 9th year, and I've never had a new textbook. The history textbook for the 8th graders was printed like in 2003, 2004. Not a lot of changes in there. Lewis and Clark still into the ocean, but it just kind of shows, specifically I think with government, there's no mention of 9/11 in this book, for instance. And so I think that became a sticking point when, like, geez, am I teaching them stuff that doesn't exist? I have to research every single thing. Is it still current? Is it even there? So the book that I found that you guys probably have the right for was really good. Online component. I mentioned about the option for tier 2 students. We're not a one-to-one, and I didn't find an online component that would be valid for the way we would need it yet. And I know that's maybe short-sighted, given in 5 years, is this even going to be something that we want? But that's a tough thing to sell out the kids in 5 years or 7 years or whatever technology shows us.
So, was the past, how did you choose McGraw-Hill?
In the previous, I get no kickback on this. I want to be very clear about that. There's no conflict of interest there.
It's Brett McGraw.
Although I wish there were. The high school had gone through them getting, I don't know what book they had gone through, whether it was an economics textbook or if it was a world history or whatever one in the past. And they liked the way that the book read, and it was pretty good.
So, probably a touchy subject. We're going to get told that I overstepped. But there are other options in Wisconsin for textbooks. Or thinking about, civics and social studies. I just wondered if you explored all those avenues or researched anything that's new out there that's happening. I happen to know what it is, so, I'm just, your investigation process, I guess is what I want to know.
I'm not exactly sure what you're totally referring to, but...
Well, there's a whole movement in Wisconsin that's called Rethinking Schools, and they have current and new things about how to teach civics and social studies. So you wouldn't have to worry about if 9/11 was in a textbook, or, hopefully Donald Trump's, going to be in the next one. But, you wouldn't have to worry about that aging out, if they keep things current. So I guess that's what I'm...
Is that an online option?
You can also, you can get teachers, you can get it, there's different levels of...
I guess I was asking if it's not online.
It's also online. There's
Okay.
an online component, there's a writing component, everything that you described.
Sure.
So...
If it's in print, I mean, the idea is it's going to be... Eventually it will not. I mean, I guess I can't speak to what the material is for sure, about what you're specifically...
I guess I'm suspicious of what's in these textbooks and whose point of view they are, if it's equally represented by, women, men, that they give a perspective about Lewis and Clark, or such do we are, there's a whole concept of how it's presented, or whose point of view.
This is a civics book, though, this isn't a history book.
No, but and I guess there's still a point of view on how that's taught too. I don't want to give any opinions about that, it gets kind of political.
Were there other resources that you investigated?
I kind of went with the one, I did not, go further into that. I didn't, in terms of the bias and in, I think what Mr. Reinhardt's talking about, for specifically with government structure, the executive, legislative, not so much how they do things, but like what they do. What is the basic idea? And I think that's I guess, right in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You had said that you're not one-to-one, but aren't the power books getting pushed down to the middle school?
Not to take home.
Yeah, not
I
to
guess.
take, not to take.
Yeah, they're not able to do
saying.
that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they would have them while they're here as opposed to that.
And I don't know in Brett's specific situation, but when we looked at some high school history books, we looked at an online version. And I made the final call to the person, and I just said, why can't I just get 30 classroom books and then buy the 70 online subscription? And the price was drastically higher to do that than it was to buy a hard copy book.
Well, is that the case with this? I mean, the question always is why at this point, even why do you buy a book?
And that was a big debate about that, and I think the idea of it's entirely put together like that. That's my perspective, honestly. And I think there might be people in this room or in the community might have a problem with that. That I'm going to make the judgment call about what is being specifically taught. And I don't know that I'm totally comfortable with that. Not fully following the state standards and doing that, but.
And there's still the person who likes that hand. Which when I started being like kind of visual, you can tell I'm a paper freak. But I also, do this, so, I respect that.
Have you looked at the book? I mean, I assume you've looked at, and I mean, I totally trust you, Joe. You looked at the book, you said this is the book.
The hard part is a lot of there used to be multiples, and one is buying the next one up, is buying the next one up, so there's less textbook providers out there too. That's a difficult point, or difficult situation that schools are getting into.
Your books are from 1996, did you say?
There's some, they talked about, there's like a campaign finance thing, a rule from 96 that we were talking about how to raise money for this stuff. And it would have been current, 5 years that they've been around, but it's no longer valid. I knew that one, but some of the other stuff that comes about, like, I think it's really essential for them to learn what's going on, what's real, how a government on the outside structure.
Do other schools still buy books, hard copies? I'm just curious. It's still,
absolutely.
We're not the only one?
We're not the only one.
all right.
Some people still need it.
Yeah,
I'll
I
move to
will.
support.
I'll second.
So we got a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Angie, roll call.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dalton,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Hay, Stefan.
Yes.
Thanks for hanging in with us, Mr. McGraw.
Thank you.
Approval of kitchen user fees?
Speaking of, thank you for hanging in there.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Jennifer, for staying.
Oh, I've actually been quite interested in all of this. I have lots of opinions, so they're all in my head. So you're all good, it's been very interesting.
Well, I do want to address some of your questions and concerns. Nancy Smith, our food service coordinator from our kitchens here, approached me, and this was actually last year, and then she reapproached me again as we started a new school year. And it comes from, there are some user groups at the kitchen that are fantastic and really do a nice job of cleaning up and taking care of the kitchen. And there's others that are a little less careful and a little bit more problematic. And there's varying pieces in between. Typically, when you have a kitchen scenario in a school and it's being used for preparation and cooking, there is a state code that requires that a certified person be on site. And so some school districts actually have, along with the building usage fee, a per hour fee to have somebody come in and oversee the cooking, the prep, the cleanup and so forth, because it is a sanitary area for delivering food service. Nancy has been really good to try to work with groups, and there's, again, some groups that bring in people that are already certified to work in a commercial kitchen and know their way around very well. And there's other groups that come in and basically use soap or towels or cleaning supplies without replenishing it, and those are things that then come out of the school's budget to replenish or to launder. She's come in at one time where there was a burner that was simply left on, and had she not come in and seen it after, it was running already for some time, but had she not happened to come in and inspected, that burner would have just ran indefinitely. Those kinds of things just require that extra attention, and more times than not, there's just still something that needs to be scrubbed or cleaned or put away the morning following, even though some groups do a really nice job. So your groups that you're working with, you mentioned that you replace soap and towels and those kinds of things.
And Nancy and I have actually had this conversation before, and I work in the Dodgeville School District kitchen, in the high school kitchen, and I know the proper procedures and the sanitary procedures and how to run most of the equipment there. So we've had multiple conversations over the phone over the years, because I do the wrestling club concessions. And I guess I don't have the problem with the fee, because in Dodgeville, we do have, if they're using the equipment in the kitchen, one of us has to be there. So if they're using that equipment, they have to pay one of us, which, all these are nonprofit things, you know, we're all just trying to make some money to, you know, help with the wrestling club or the football or with basketball, and trying to do just as much as we all possibly can. And we so appreciate how much you guys provide for us, because the school is never closed. I mean, the lights are always on, there's always somebody here, always somebody using it. My question is that, like, for instance, for us, we're using the stuff that the district actually pays for. We're not using the soap or anything like that. We're using the electricity, we're using the dishwasher, we're using the ovens, things like that. And I know that we clean up properly. I usually am probably here 36 hours out of the weekend. We're using it for a full weekend. I just had a few questions on, say, like with wrestling, we have a 3-day weekend. Would that mean, since I'm using it Friday night and Saturday and Sunday, would that be 3 separate events? So would that be $75? And would that go to the district, or would it go to Taher?
Yeah.
Because I think a majority of that $25 cost should go to the district and not to Taher.
Right, no, some great questions.
So should it be per event instead of per day?
That is the way it is listed.
It is per event, okay.
Well, and we have 3 separate events.
Right.
There might be a JV wrestling tournament on a Friday, the high school on Saturday, and then a youth one on Sunday.
And I might be there
Separate
the
events.
yeah, and I would be there for the duration of that weekend.
Out of fairness, Nancy has shared that you're the group that really does a nice job because of your affiliation with the Dodgeville School District and Kitchen. It just works seamlessly for you to understand how things operate.
Right.
So you're the exception, and it's hard to then say, well, this group doesn't need to pay because they have a certified person on staff running the kitchen over the weekends, but all the other groups do. So her recommendation to me was just simply a per event fee. So when I think of an event, I think of the youth tournament is different than a high school tournament. That would be 2 events, much like if it was a back-to-back basketball and wrestling, it would be 2 events. However, if there's a 2-day event, an overnight Thursday night conference tournament or Friday night conference tournament or a Saturday, that would be 1 event. So I would see that is my interpretation of how to run that.
So this is any school event?
That's using the kitchen.
That's using the kitchen.
That's using the kitchen, that needs access to the kitchen.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking things that were not school affiliated.
Yeah.
Necessarily like the wrestling club of a varsity match or something.
Yeah, typically they don't open it up for those
But-
onesies and twosies
You're
that are
right.
dual meets or
Yeah.
basketball games.
Okay.
It's when you more have an all-day
Tournament.
event and you need, I mean, we'll still continue to open up and allow coolers to be used for cooling product or warmers to be used, but if you're serving out of the kitchen, I think that would constitute a different event. And we would be flexible, and traditionally the reason it's before the board is the board has stated that the schools were built for the community and for community use. We traditionally have not had building usage fees for school-affiliated or community-based groups. It's only for those groups that are coming in from the outside. Just to address your question, Jennifer, about if this is a slippery slope about other fees to come, the answer is no. I think in the 6 years, we've made one, other than maybe some food pricing shifts, I think we've had one user fee that might have increased, and I think that was an elementary workbook fee or material fee, but we've held the line on user fees. I did get some feedback from a parent that they thought the user fees were too low for elementary materials. But that's the only feedback I've received around user fees. So I don't see this as a incremental step toward trying to move towards fees, as it is trying to recapture. Final question was, where would that fee go? There is a shared, so it would not go directly to Taher. It would be deposited into the Fund 50 account as a revenue, and there is a cost sharing at the end of the year depending on whether we run in the red or in the black. And so that would just be part of the overall revenue of the Fund 50 schools food service program that's trying to run at a balance, net balance of zero. So we're not trying to make money off of the community, nor are we trying to...
No, and I would never ever suggest that. My thought is that because we don't use, basically we're using the facilities itself, we're not using the stuff that Taher provides or that would come out of Taher's budget. That's where I was.
I would give Nancy the latitude too to waive that fee if there was truly no expense incurred in the form of materials, time, cleanup, utilities, those kinds of things. So she owns, or I'm sorry, operates the kitchen and has that ability to make those determinations if it was just coming into store product or if it was actually some dollars that need to be recaptured because there's extra work for her ladies when they come in the following morning. There's follow-up cleanup of bands or brands.
I was just gonna,
Are we better off phrasing this as a deposit?
right, and it's refundable, and then be very clear about what, why it would not be refundable for these particular reasons. And she then would, the burden would be on her to make sure that she has, done an inventory or done a good job to make sure that it's accurate so that people like Jennifer who are coming in and spending extra time and energy get their $25 back, and those that do not know why and how they can hopefully the next time get theirs back if they're interested in that.
And if it's going to be a deposit, should it maybe be higher? Because
Yeah,
if you
because
think,
I'd leave it a mess if I thought
Right.
somebody else was gonna come and clean it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I personally wouldn't. But I mean, what if someone would?
Could you put it as a $25 to $100 fee? That would be not necessarily a deposit, but Nancy has the discretion to charge, say us $10 because they spent an hour organizing the cooler because we have a ton of food that gets delivered to the cooler and it gets on their way. And and if we've left stuff in there that we've forgotten about that she has to dispose of or things like that versus where different.
deciding.
Oh, yeah. Well, not only deciding, but if someone, right now it's, everybody's supposed to clean up the kitchen and leave
The
the way that they
expectation is there.
got it. So with, well, we can leave that and let her do it. And create
Yeah,
more
so
work
the
for Nancy.
expectation isn't there.
I guess my concern is a lot of the groups, and maybe you can speak to what you guys do, a lot of the groups, they use it for fundraisers, in turn give back to the district in another way.
Right.
They're buying a mat that the athletic Vicky doesn't have to buy, or a curtain, or, so I think it kind of goes in line with how we view
The use of
the
it.
usage fee, that we don't charge it because it's community and it gives back, so
It's sort of just part and parcel. I mean, that's what the kitchen's there for. That's part of the deal.
Yeah, the other point for consideration is that the Food Service Fund 50 is the only budget that is required by state statute to run as an operating budget with no loss. So if we're incurring fees for outside user groups that eventually at the end of the day has then transferred from the general fund to offset those expenditures, those are real dollars that are for kids, for textbooks, for instructional materials, support staff that are being used to compensate community groups. So just another point to consider. I think the deposit back and forth exchanging, give me 25, here's it back, give me 25, here's it back. I think that's an undue burden for what we're trying to accomplish. I like the idea of being able to invoice for direct expenses or charges not to exceed, which would be her hourly salary, or it may not even be her, it could be the next person that's coming in for the weekend to do some following cleanup, and if there is none, then no charge. If there's significant cleanup, then it's the direct use and the cost to replace soap or towels or launder, whatever that might be. But not to exceed, I think, would be appropriate if you went in that direction.
They do pay for janitors, though, don't they, when they have events?
There is the Community Service Fund, Fund 80, that supports custodial fees for community use groups. So that is offset to replenish bathrooms, to replenish soap and towels in bathrooms. And to clean up.
That's paid by the people putting the event on, isn't it?
That is paid by the Community Fund, which is Fund 80, which is levied above and beyond the normal general operating budget. So there is no building usage fee or custodial fee for community-based groups. We have, in the past, made the decision to not charge groups that are Mineral Point based.
If Roger Foss was up there, he doesn't get paid?
No, he is salaried and does not get paid. If there's other custodians that are coming in on the weekends to clean up after a community event, not a school event, a community event, then we levy Fund $80 to offset the salary and benefits to support that.
Well, they certainly pay the $25 and keep it, and give it to where it goes. No deposit or anything.
What do you think, Larry?
If it's $25.50, that's pretty immaterial to me. What worries me a little bit is if people are putting things into a freezer and we have our food in there for the school day and people are using the countertops, does somebody have to wipe everything down?
We have to wipe, 100%. We have to clean everything out. I drain all the things, I drain all the warmers, and I wash them down, sanitize them. I wash all the countertops, sanitize them. The dishwasher has to be wiped out, sanitized. There's a lot more that's in place that needs to do than what a regular community member would be able to do.
You're in the business, so yeah, you do it.
Yeah, I know how to do it.
the next person that's in there
may not know
what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not that I want to prevent anybody from using the kitchen, but we get
and when Nancy comes in the next morning, she would probably have to go through, because a lot of times some of the groups, I know when I first started, I've been in food service for, I don't even know how long now. I've started out in early childhood food service and provided meals for early childhood for years. And now I'm at the Dodgeville High School, primarily because of my son, to be there after school for him. And I've had parents come in and they'll throw all their stuff on the dishwasher in the kitchen. It's supposed to be a clean room. It's supposed to be, you're not allowed to do that. So I take everything out, and usually I'm the bad guy by the end of the weekend. And they'll take dishes and try and dry them with a towel and put them on the rack. They won't run them through the sanitizer. So it is a benefit to have someone there saying this is what the rules are. And I've been on both sides of it. You know, being on the concession side here and being on the kitchen person side. I've supervised FFA fundraisers in Dodgeville and helped with pasty sales in Dodgeville, and I've been on both sides of it, so I've seen it all.
Is there a checklist listed for users to follow in the kitchen, what they need to do?
I don't know that for sure.
Okay. Would that help Nancy?
I'm sure if there may already be a checklist in place, and these, to your point, I think you get varying levels of whether you have a checklist or not. Even what you might think is clean and sanitized still left stuff in the bottom of the pan and put away in the cupboard, and hopefully nobody noticed. And the person that's signing off on the checklist is not the only person that's actually doing the sanitizing and cleaning, so they need to be, and that's probably, like you said, her first job is to come in and see if the kitchen is put back together the way it was when she left it. So my recommendation would be to stay with the $25 per event fee with her ability to waive it if there's no need. I think it addresses the wrestling concern when you have a certified person in there sanitizing and knows what's expected, but still recovers some of her time, wages, materials that might be lost for those groups that don't.
I support that. Do we have a motion?
Can I just ask a question? Is it something they're paying ahead of time, or she's returning it, so yes, they're paying it ahead of time. In
Yeah.
order to book the kitchen,
Yeah.
they need to pay the fee,
Mhm.
okay? I do think there needs to be some, like, just pretty explicit expectations, so people know exactly what they're, one, responsible for from a money perspective, but also from a cleanup perspective, so whether that process needs to be outlined a little bit more in detail, I think that would be good for people to understand what they need to do.
I agree.
I think there's a reason to return it though, that there'll be much work for her to keep track.
I would say it's probably not going to be the norm, right? Unless,
Yeah.
most of the time, she's probably gonna keep this fee.
I would guess more times than not she would keep the fee, and maybe it is, I'll check with her if she has an inkling to invoice after the fact rather than before. I'm fine with that, and as long as they're paying their invoices, you know, if they fail to pay, then they're able to use the kitchen going forward. So that could work as well.
I'm just happy it won't be a dominoes effect, so.
Yeah.
And more fees coming on top of more fees with other usages, so that was more my concern.
Yeah, thank
Is
you.
it starting something? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a motion?
Very good.
Larry made a motion, do I second?
I'll second it.
Second by Julie. Would you roll call?
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Hay. Stevenson,
Yes.
Bush,
No.
Stefan.
Yes. Approval of the Boost agreement?
The Boost agreement is a rollover from last year. We have 5 schools that are part of a consortium that receive and deliver course content via telepresence. There is maintenance, licensing fees, WebEx accounts that we jointly share between the 5 schools. The cost is there for you, for your review, page 82 in the board book.
How many students used Boost last year?
I don't know the total number, and we had probably
15, I think it is.
15?
We had students that took class for UW Platteville in the second semester. There were 8 8th graders that took a Spanish class, and we had 1 student that took accounting.
that doesn't include the virtual field trips that would have included students in some of those offerings as well. We have the virtual field trips that took place.
Yeah. Holocaust presentation, some PD that took place through using the system.
Do you guys use the ACT thing through there too, or like a boot camp?
Tom did that this summer,
Oh.
provided that opportunity this summer through telepresence.
Is that effect?
What?
Is that effect?
No.
No, ACT.
I move that we approve this.
Motion by Lisa, do a second.
I'll second.
Second by Kelly. Any other discussion?
That's 4,100 per district.
Correct.
Roll call.
Hay,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Gunlaw,
Yes.
Stefan.
Yes. Draft policy 700 series.
Just a few revisions that the committee made. This is the policy committee making recommendations to the board. The first, see draft policy 700 series, that's actually the page 85. I can pull it up here as well.
School meal account.
School meal account, yeah, before the 100s, thank you. Sample policy 2, actually it's in the rule, I believe. I don't think this changed at all.
No, I think it's in the policy. In the policy.
Oh, there it is, yep, on the
Second
top.
page.
Top of the second page, here we go, thank you. A little bit bigger. So the district may need to inform a student, we struck of his or her current account balance, and we just stated that inform a student of restrictions that apply to his or her food services charges, and that all communications with students shall be made in a friendly and respectful manner. So essentially taking out that the district might have a conversation with the student regarding really what's a parent role and function around their account. And that if we do have a conversation with a student being a senior that's continuously overdrawn on an a la carte, that those communications will be made respectfully.
That's the rule.
And then there, yeah, so 83, the rule does have also a minor revision on the top.
also added that the policy be reviewed annually. Because we did have a sort of a lengthy discussion, recognizing that this is a delicate issue. So.
Yeah, so that's on page 84 at the last line.
I think if anything, the only changes were to make sure that the ownership of meal payment was not on the student and it was directed more at the parents. This is not the fault of kids that they can't pay for their meals. So to make sure that we're calling out that that's a sensitive subject.
We also wanted to make sure that we added the language to make sure there wasn't a shaming incident of the students, like you see sometimes on TV where districts get in trouble with that type of thing. Not that it is a problem here. So I move that we approve policy 763.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
One question about it, they can donate it, but if they got a personal account with money in there, they can take it back?
Yes. At the end of the year, yes.
Okay, that's what it says here, they donate it, but they can't take it back.
Do we charge a penalty if we're overdrawn? Or if the parent is overdrawn?
No.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Then the policy 100 series, policy 161 was reviewed by the policy committee. I did not see any changes or recommendations to 161. It was discussed with no further action taken. So I'll make a motion.
Same with 163.
I believe that's right, we can double check.
And 164.
Agree with 63 and 64. There is on page 164 the rule, which would be page 100 in the board packet. We did make a recommendation to strike the rule, which still stays in here for a holding purpose. But the rule essentially was going to define what the amounts would be that boards would be reimbursed. You'll see later in the agenda that we've aligned that with the employee handbook. So it would be approval of all policies in the 100 and accepting the recommendation to strike the 164 rule.
Right, so motion to approve policies 161, 163, and 164.
As recommended by policy committee, right? Yes. Okay. Do you have a second?
I'll take it.
Discussion?
Lisa was the motion.
Yeah,
Did you make the motion?
I did.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That then gets us to the employee handbook, which addresses the rule that we just left. The employee handbook would have language in it. I didn't include the entire addendum of the handbook, but essentially I just put the pertinent language in, which keeps the breakfast, lunch, dinner stipends the same. And this would then include, when we say the district, it would include board members as part of that district. We did make a recommendation to change lodging from $77 per night to $100 per night. And then we added a line that just added up the breakfast, lunch, dinner for a full day of $41 expense. Instead of having a 7, 11, and 23 being isolated, we could just do a full day of 41. So strike 100, or strike 77 and make it $100 per night for lodging. And just doing some math and adding a full day option of $41. And that would be the actual cost, or whichever is less.
Do we have a motion to approve the changes?
I'll motion it.
We have a motion by Kelly, do you have a second?
I'll second it.
This is all pre-approved by you, Luke, right?
Yes.
What's the mileage on it, Luke? 52 or, you know?
53, it's changing.
It's moving all the time.
It just moves all the time.
Up and down, so between 52 and 53 is the latest.
Well, we pay
for the year, we pay what it is at the first of the year. So it's
Whatever it is, January.
53,
So you don't- okay.
53.5. We don't move
Move
with
it, okay.
whatever it is on the date of January 1st is where it stays.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second, all in favor to approve the changes in the handbook, say,
Ask you a quick question.
oh, go ahead.
Is there any concern with timing of the day? Luke? Have you seen anybody have a 10 to 4 or 10 to 5 seminar and turn in a full day?
No, that part I do monitor, and if it's a 10 to, it's just, I'm trying to give an example where it might end early. I look at the travel time, and if it include a lunch, and that's kind of why we have it broken down. If it includes a breakfast lunch, because they end early, we'll be back in time for dinner, then they don't get the full day. And sometimes you go in for a half a day, and then finish the second day a full day, and so I'd only do a lunch, dinner, but not the breakfast, depending on their leave time. So it does give us flexibility to take a day and a half and split it up without giving 2 full days.
Do you ever have a problem with?
No, we've never had that. Most often, the employees don't use the full allocation. So, typically what's turned in for expenditures or receipts is always less than what we would give them if we've given them the cash up front for the full day. I think our staff are pretty respectful.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Superintendent's report?
I will go through a couple items. Where to start? Let me start with the strategic planning. Let me start here. So we may decide to forgo some of this in lieu of time, but I'll walk you through. Joelle, as part of her national conference, brought back an idea to revamp the superintendent's report in a way that hopefully is a little bit more engaging about some of the things that have happened over the past month, as well as some of the things that are forthcoming. One of the slides I put right up in front is just an annual report that we need to give as part of the board meeting, and that needs to be done by September 1st. So thank you, Member Bush, for putting this back on our radar, which is our annual seclusion and restraint report I put underneath the superintendent's report. The 2011 Act 125 requires that annually report out the number of times we had to either seclude or restrain a student. And we had a total number of restraints due to safety or of students and or staff was 2 instances last year of restraining a student. That really only occurred, those 2 occurrences were on 1 student twice rather than 2 students, and that student did have a disability. So we reported that as our part of due responsibility to annually report out the number of instances where we've actually had to physically restrain a kid. The next piece is just the good news. We'll walk through this. The WASB Business Honor Roll is something that Joelle had sent out a solicitation for, asking you for potential companies, partnerships that are out there in our community that we would want to recognize as part of our school district's association with school boards. And you solicited a few, Joelle, and then I'll take others from the table.
Right, can you start a blank document so they can see? So we can nominate up to 5, and last year we did the full 5. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna send you around a blank sheet of paper, and then you'll be able to write the one you wish to choose from, after we get the full list.
If we
And then
chose them
and how did we
last
get the
year,
list? We'll talk about the list right now. What, Lisa, sorry?
last year's people, can we nominate them?
No, once they're done, they've been nominated.
And last year.
Nominated or received?
I don't think you can nominate them again,
I was just gonna say.
regardless. Well, because there's really no big award. The honor that would come besides just the certificate that we present is that then some would get featured in the Wisconsin School News magazine. So there's no ultimate award, so that's why they can't be nominated again. So Jeff sent me his. So we ready to start typing?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff suggested Gorgon's, Quality Inn, Farmer's Implement, Alliant, and Pit Stop. And then Julie had emailed me, and she's here, but she had suggested Mitchell Hardware and Code Oil. And so if anybody has any other suggestions, now's your time to. So think about people that have contributed or had partnerships with our school district.
I think the new name for 4-Oil is Triple P Express.
Triple P, no, it's separate.
Well,
It's Perry's Port Oil and then it's Triple P Express.
Right, I think the parent company, I think the parent company is the same. So we can,
Terry and Lita.
There you go.
I think it has to be a business though.
Okay, so, yeah, whichever, whatever.
4-Oil, Triple P
Code
Express.
Oil, I think is the parent company.
You're really good at that.
Regardless, we'll investigate later. So if anyone else would like to nominate some suggestions, now's your time.
We can pick 5.
You can pick, yep, you can pick 5. Or you can add more if you want to. You don't have to just choose from.
Why are we picking 5?
You don't have to pick 5, it's a maximum of 5. There's, in my opinion, there's no harm in, I mean, it's a chance to show goodwill toward community partnership, and then they come into the board meeting and get a certificate, a photo op, get publicized, and we recognize the good work that they've done in the partnership, so.
So we have 7 potential business partners. You can select up to 5. And if you have others you'd like to add to this list, we should compile the full list first and then pick the 5.
Was last year the first time that
Save some for next
The first year, we only did Cummins, because the board felt that they were just like stand away.
And last year, who was nominated?
And last year, we had Seymour Grain, Kristen Mitchell, Farmers Savings Bank, Mountain City Bank, and help me out with the 5th one.
Jeff.
Yep, Point Foods, right.
Now, these won't be ever nominated again for years.
Correct. Correct. Because like I said, it's not really a statewide award. They get statewide recognition, but it's just more of a thank you.
Does the Opera House cut us a deal for the,
They'd be a good one too.
We're gonna run out of them, so if we leave that way out.
It was a good partnership. Thank you.
Rescue Squad?
Is that a business?
I don't know.
Or is that
There's,
a
it's an organization that's,
non-profit?
it's
I don't know.
Well, same with
it's
the
all
Opera
about-
House, it's not a business.
well,
yes.
It's our nomination, we get to choose.
Raw soil.
Board agree with that?
we're handing our votes in, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Any others that somebody'd like to add to the list of contenders? All are worthwhile, and publicly I'd like to thank all of these partners and those that have been nominated before and might come after. We've got great partnerships in the community. Please pick 5 of those potential, up to 5. Do you want to limit it to a number as a board?
I think the board should decide what they.
The fire department, I mean, the volunteer fire department, they always do that, fire training at the elementary, where they light stuff on fire.
Okay, we'll add the fire department.
they got here pretty fast,
I know.
didn't
Keep
they?
at 5, we're running out of business.
Well, I'll have to check on the ones that aren't really a business too. I don't know, I'd have to read the language.
Very language.
Maybe pick a winner and a runner-up.
So how many would you like to have submitted? The board gets to choose. How many names? Do you want to submit 5? Do you want to submit 3? Do you want to submit 1? What's your pleasure?
Go with thoughts.
I put 5 down on mine.
There's no one next year.
Okay, so the top 5 vote getters would be,
And we don't have to do 5, we can do 2 next year. Yeah.
If they don't get on this year, they can get on next year, if we nominate them.
if they,
Once they're on this list now, they're done.
if they don't get on this year, can they be nominated again next year?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Oh,
Everybody's automatically, so if you submit 5 names, they're on the honor roll. I mean, there's no further selection process by the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. They publish the list, so like on the website, if you go there right now, we have 5 names under Mineral Point School District from last year. And then they get a certificate and they come here. So there's no further work on your part at all. It's just a good deed.
We have 5, and Maddie's the last one.
Okay.
And you can give us the results at the end of the superintendent's.
Oh, I'm not good with math, so I don't know how.
Oh,
You don't have time.
just tallies, you'll be all right.
I got rewriting, decipher. I'll count Jeff's too.
Okay. Okay, strategic planning. I'm just going to zip back here, and I thought maybe the 3 board members that were part of the strategic planning could just maybe do a quick report out as part of the superintendent's report to share some of your observations and maybe some of the things. Give us a SWOT analysis. What was the strengths, maybe of the process, the weaknesses, and what were some of the opportunities that you saw? While you're doing that, I'll just quickly put up the planning members so that you can see the committee. They're worth recognizing. This was a good group of people that had a wide variety of cross-representation across the community that really brought a lot of value to the process. But I would turn it over to Julie and Kelly and Andy to speak more about the experience, and maybe I can backfill anything that you know.
I'll go first.
Thanks.
Well, I thought it was a much better process than the last time, I'll say that. It seemed just more succinct, and Mary did a really good job of, that was her name, right? Mary did a really good, really good job of keeping it moving, and then at the same time asking clarifying questions to make sure that everybody was aware of what we were saying, what we were sort of aligning to. So I appreciated the way she facilitated the day. I thought it was good. I thought the group was, almost everyone was engaged and involved. And unlike last time, I mean, the last one spread out over just too long anyway, but there was a lot of there was a lot of dialogue that didn't add a lot of value last time, and then I think it actually eroded some of the trust that we were hoping to build, and I didn't see that happen. I felt like everybody sort of left in a good spot. They felt like we had done good work, and I believe that we have a group of individuals who will at least attest that we got something accomplished and that will benefit the school.
Anything you'd add, Kelly?
Yeah, I thought it was a good group. I thought the process was really good. I think if this is a process that we move forward with on other committees, it's an engagement by the community and staff and board members. It was really great to see. The only thing that I saw that was, because I was observing some of the community, that possibly they had a problem with acronyms. So if acronyms could be defined, you know, they're searching and they're on their Google and they were looking for those things, and that was the only thing that I saw that was probably, you know, difficult for people who aren't educators to understand. I think we got where we needed to be. I think the group that I was in at the end, a lot of people bailed ship and went to the community. Yeah, and so, you know, we really had a tough decision to make, and it was hard, and it was good to get through that process to know that people had to agree. And stuff just starts weeding away, and what comes to the surface, what really should come to the surface. So, thank you for...
First of all, I thought Joel put together a fantastic cross-section of people. It really was. I enjoyed it immensely. One thing I do want to note is the presentations by everybody that presented were really good. And my impression was that Mary and those not associated with the district were blown away by the results from the last strategic plan and how much has been accomplished in the 3 years since off of that document. It really was treated as a living document. So I think we have some strong expectations from the members of this committee that the same will happen moving forward with with the new document, but I think it was nice to step back and take inventory a little bit on what's been accomplished and give us a good grasp of where our goals need to be moving forward. But I thought everybody that was there was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic.
The draft plan that's coming forward for the board in the near future has changed from 4 focus areas down to 2 strategies. And one of those strategies is around community engagement and building trust. And the second strategy is around academic innovation and individualization. And those 2 areas will be further defined and have some sub-strands underneath them. There's some things that are still remain a priority and a focus, but they're no longer a strategy. They're just more embedded into some of the cultural things that we're already doing. But we'll still be putting some SMART goals together and some action plans that will be vetted with this full group that you see in front of you to see if that's the direction they were sending us to do some work in, and if they agree, then we'll bring that back to the board for a final review and approval. So we'll continue to update you as we're doing our work, but as we get back together as an administrative team, we now have some work ahead of us to take those 2 larger strategies and really try to put some truly actionable items around those that are going to be some stretch goals for 3 years, and also some short-term goals to start to make some progress toward those stretch goals. So excited to work with this group and very thankful for the process, and we'll be seeing more on that going forward.
Thank you. And I think good job to you and the administrative team and the teachers, because Andy's point, I really want to highlight that. The first 2 or 3 hours where we were talking about, here's what we said in the last strategic plan, and here's how we have met those or had victories in those areas, that was powerful. And I think that in these meetings where things get a little bit convoluted and when people get out into their day-to-day, they probably don't realize all of the good stuff that is actually going on and why you're doing the things that you're doing. So when you can loop it back and the successes are shown right there as this was a focus area, this was one of our strategic initiatives, and here's how we accomplished that, it was really powerful, I thought. And I think it would be good, and we talked about that annually we should be doing that as a community meeting so people can actually see the progress rather than waiting every 3 years and maybe being part of a team that gets to see it. No, let's really
promote it.
Yes.
That's a good idea. You're going to do it with the...
It certainly makes sense to, in our new strategies, to do an annual report out of some of our short-term goals and or progress made towards those longer 3-year stretch goals. Yeah, we can build that in as part of our annual end-of-year report.
Well, we should, I mean, to me, it's a good time now to review the last 3 years as we're kicking off this new one too.
Sure.
I mean, you guys have already built the presentations too, right?
And confirm what we've done, just the message just keeps continuing.
Yep.
Yeah, we had roughly a little shy of 2 hours of presentation about past accomplishments, so to try to bring that down to a level that's digestible at the board meeting might be a little challenging because you don't want to just brush over it, but it's so comprehensive about all the good things we've done and the backstory of how we got there that it's...
What if it's not a board meeting, but a presentation that is recorded
And
that
looped
can then
into
be submitted,
the website?
you know,
Can be looped?
to the,
Can be on
to
YouTube?
everybody
Do
who
like a
likes the...
webinar kind of thing, but
Yeah.
just record it.
Yeah.
We also created a summary document that shows accomplishments with some check boxes on whether it's completed or ongoing, and we've got a kind of a PowerPoint for each one of the 4 strands, so some of that might already be reproducible and might suffice as well. Let's put some think time into how to best put something together that can just stay out there for a while.
And, you know, we're a unified district, so we're unique, but a lot of school districts have to have an annual meeting, and then they would do something along those lines. So, you know, even though we don't have to have one, you know, it might be something that we look into on some level.
October meeting. Yeah, thanks. Good process, so many thank yous. We just wrapped up with summer school. Matt left already, but you know, we had a little bit of bumpiness as we started summer school because it was in transition from Matt taking over the leadership and Mitch kind of transitioning over. But once every kid kind of found their groove and got into schools and so forth, everything went really well. If you're hearing of any summer school desires for next year and how to enhance or improve, certainly let us know. We're always looking to continue to grow the summer school program. We have right now students in our FFA program headed out to or came back from Washington, D.C. with the leadership conference. So that has been ongoing, along with the new softball scoreboard that is now over at the location down at the park. The band was selected to head out to Disney, so we're excited about that opportunity for them as well. And Matt gave a presentation at CECL 3. It was a small workshop, and it really wasn't to promote his new book, but it was to share information that he's been passionate about around digital portfolios. And there's a good group of people that listened to Matt, and he shared some of the insights that he's been able to be sharing with others through his publication. I did my first round of being a master educator assessor, so I looked at 3 different portfolios of principals across the state, 2 from Racine and 1 from up north that were interested in becoming a master educator as a principal, and that process was done as part of my work with the Department of Public Instruction. The Chamber Golf outing took place. This is one of our best foursomes, right, Vicki? One of the many foursomes. They had a wonderful day out there, good weather, and we again partnered with the Chamber and had representation out there, and a good event. The Hall of Fame night is coming up this Friday. Nick Filardo is our inductee, and he looks just the same, doesn't he? So we'll see Nick out there Friday night, and it'll be a good opportunity for us to recognize his legacy. Registration, part 2 comes tomorrow. The first one went really smoothly. Overall, we've been doing this now, I think this is our 4th year. Third year. We figured a few things out by moving to online registration. This is one of the few times we've kind of moved because the gym space was not available to us, that we tried to work it out of our cafetorium. We did run into a little bit of congestion issues with lines kind of backing up through the middle. We've made some adjustments to try to clear that up. A good representation, even though it was rather early this year, we still had a good response of families coming through, and we anticipate getting everyone through tomorrow, hopefully if everything goes well. Community Football Day last weekend, bringing kids and families together to celebrate the kickoff of the season and to just raise general awareness and enjoy some time in camaraderie together. The MacBook deployment is ongoing, and I brought a few resources just to share to kind of show you a couple things. Yeah, if you just unbox that one, that'd be great. This is an example of what the students will receive. This is a MacBook Air. Find that actually, this is a zipper up on top. So it comes with a power adapter, and then it is much the size of a Chromebook, but has a hard drive, a little bit larger keyboard display, and better display overall. These are brand new. We were able to repurpose the cases that we use for the Chromebooks, so we'll give some protection to the kids. Most of them are in really good shape. We have a few extras that are just not functioning anymore, but that's something that the kids will be able to use. This other one is the teacher version. The only difference is it's a little bit larger monitor. We go from the 11 inch to the 13 inch, so you can kind of get a comparison. Teachers obviously doing a little bit more site work at home and doing some things with applications. Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
That's nice, Vanna.
Yes. So these will be deployed as the students come back to school, as the teachers are coming back to professional development next week, and that will give them an opportunity to use a better device that I think will be more robust for the work that they do day in, day out. The last thing that Angie just unpackaged is what is called the Khajiit, and the Khajiit is simply a mobile hotspot. It has a cord that plugs into an adapter, just an outlet, and then the directions are pretty simple. It tells you how to enter your password into your Wi-Fi on your computer, and anywhere that it can get a cellular service, it then connects your family computer to the internet. It has a built-in filter on it, so that you don't have to worry about kids trying to access inappropriate material using school-provided devices. It's limited to basically your educational resource sites. It doesn't allow you to navigate YouTube or some of those kinds of channels where they can get lost for hours on end. So this is to support our families. We're originally starting by deploying 12 at the elementary and 12 at the high school, middle school. They can check them out through the library if they have a project, or if they're going on a volleyball trip on the bus or other, and they need the ability to connect to a mobile hotspot. This will hopefully help some of the families that don't have internet access. They're flexible between buildings, so if we're finding we're getting large use at the middle school, high school, and not much at the elementary, we can ship them back and forth. We can track them to see how often they're being used, if at all, where they're going, so forth. The idea is if they're not being used, then we need to find a way to promote them better, because we are paying a monthly service fee to keep these alive and on and usable, and so we want them to be fully used. There's a 500 megabyte daily limit. Most kids, families have a plan that doesn't have 500 megabytes in a month, so if something's going on where they hit that threshold in a day, something significant is going on, and that will power it down until we have a chance to reset it and re-clear it. So I just wanted to share a little bit of where some of your educational dollars have gone, and as a good steward of the money that we spent, we've deployed. On the right, you'll see a person that is with Apple and Macintosh, that's working with our local staff, Carrie Cabot on the left, and Rachel is with Dependable Solutions, and that team now has the ability to manage these devices all from one master device. So that's nice when you want the third grades to have this app, the fifth grades to have that app. They don't have to go through and now load it on each iPad or on each computer. They can just do one master copy and then it deploys. Likewise, if we add a new machine and it opens up right out of the box, it will open up because we've already registered that device with all of the applications ready to go, including our wireless system and our email and Gmail apps and so forth. So all that comes pre-packaged when the kids turn it on, which really makes it nice for managing devices. In the old days, in iPads, literally they were going iPad to iPad to iPad to iPad. And even if you got a classroom of 20 kids trying to deploy something, you had 15 different outcomes. So this is really something that they're excited about. Moving on, just a quick look at, this is my calendar, again, a new feature with Joelle's suggestion, looking back some of the meetings that I've had in the past month. We've met on the stadium, that progress continues to move forward. They're concerned about fencing on the wall, as we'll have some JV games there in the near future, as well as potentially sound would be something that would be nice to have. But the scrimmage went well, and they're looking forward to using that at the junior varsity level this season. Part of the Kiwanis, continue to meet with the Kiwanis on a regular basis at this time. Also, we had an endowment meeting. Our educational endowment fund continues to meet monthly. There is some small activity that continues to grow that endowment, and we could be looking at giving a gift out as soon as the end of this year. It would be a small gift, but nonetheless, it would actually start to see some of the fruits of the labor of the endowment. I mentioned the Chamber Golf Outing and our registration dates. We did have our strategic planning. It was a 2-day event, and then I was attending the WIA Board of Control meeting up in Stevens Point last Friday. Looking forward, our next registration date is the Kiwanis meeting. Our new staff orientation is one for the board. We have now 2 members that will be able to attend. Katie Hughes, our kindergarten teacher, and Erin Leonard, our options in education and math intervention teacher. Unfortunately, Brittany Raskovius is our language arts teacher. She had a pre-commitment to be out of state for a wedding. So we'll introduce those 2 members. I doubt we'll have a third one ready to go by Thursday. However, you are welcome to join the 2 staff members for lunch at the Grey Dog Deli, as we do annually. We have an 11:30 start. We're not going to use the back room because it's such a small group, so we're just going to order off the menu. We'll let them know how many are coming. So if you are able to join us for an 11:30 lunch with Katie Hughes and Erin Leonard, myself, maybe a couple other staff members that are involved with the orientation day, we would love to have the board join us. So RSVP with Angie, or if you know right now I'm in, tell us. If you know you're out for sure, tell us. And if you need some more time,
Thursday, the 17th.
I cannot make it.
I cannot make it.
Okay, Kelly and Lisa are out for sure.
I'm also out.
You're out also, and Andy's out. Okay. And then we'll wait to hear from Laddie and Larry. 11:30 for lunch at Grey Dog. Yeah. We do have, you're also invited to, I'm sorry, the Hall of Fame is coming up this Friday. Then we start with staff coming back for our professional development on the 23rd. And that evening we have a staff picnic out at Soldiers Memorial Park. The board is welcome to join us for a picnic underneath the shelter catered by Nancy Smith. And we hope you can join us. It's a 5 o'clock gathering, 6 o'clock dinner, I believe is the right time?
4:30 to 6:30.
4:30 to 6:30, thank you. So please come out and join us for some dinner and say hi to the staff and welcome everybody back. Put that on your calendar for the 23rd. 24th is our back to school night. And 2 days of professional development at the Quality Inn on the 29th and 30th. You're welcome to join us for Maria Nielsen giving information on interventions. That'll be a pretty powerful training for us as we kind of wrap up our PLC 3-year pilot and bring it all together with how we can deliver interventions better. So that would be the 29th and 30th.
When is your speech? Is that on the 23rd?
Larry's speech is the 23rd, yeah, when we come back, or 23rd.
Larry's giving a speech?
Yes, our board president, typically when we come back the morning of the 23rd, staff and board, by the way, should get your pictures taken. So if you have not got your picture taken, tomorrow's registration is a great time to do that. And if not, then that morning. But we would like every staff member to get an updated picture. So please join us for registration or the morning of the 23rd.
I have a follow-up from the vote too, that I need to discuss.
I'll make sure you get it, thank you. So 7:45 is lunch, I'm sorry, 7:45 is breakfast, and then the new staff, all staff, support and regular staff will come back on the 23rd. We'll open with some welcome and introductions of new staff. We'll be receiving a quick overview and response by Larry Steffes from a board perspective. The endowment fund would like to take just a moment to speak with staff and share a little bit about what's been happening with the endowment, and then we'll be releasing for some professional development around that. First day of school is the 5th, and we are going to be ready. The buildings are pretty much put back together. We still have a little bit of work to do at the options school, but we have a contingency plan in the short term that will transition us at the library until that building is completely completed, and we've got all the state permits in place to say it's okay for occupancy. So we are optimistic about this year and look forward to kids and staff returning. So that's a quick overview of the calendar. That's my last slide. And as I go back to our board packet, I had built in some time for the Forecast 5 tutorial. I think I'm seeing the heads shaking the way I'm feeling is maybe not tonight, but that was something the board asked to bring back. So we will keep that on the agenda for a lighter agenda and spend some time just getting into what it can do, what the options are, and how you might use it as a board. Any questions or clarifying pieces to the superintendent's report?
Yes.
Thank you. Here's Joel.
So we have 3 clear front runners, Farmers Implement with 6 votes, and Gorgon's in the Opera House with 4 each. But then we have 3 that have tied with 3 each. So we can either go with just the 3, or we can re-vote and have you pick your top 2 from the following 3, which were Alliant, Pit Stop, and Mitchell's. So one of those 3 that I just named would be eliminated, or we can go with just the top 3 vote getters of Farmers, Gorgon's, and Opera House.
Yes, do that.
Do that.
Is that the consensus
Top
of
3.
everyone?
Top 3.
I think that makes sense.
Are we fully aligned on that?
Yeah, are we?
Okay, so, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Consensus.
Are we gonna go into close?
I did not hear a motion for that. That's up to the board.
Do we need it?
I'm hearing no.
So-
Yes.
Let's move to go into closed for a second to figure out whether we should be enclosed. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
and that's what I think we should do.
Well, to go into close, you should state the intent of why you're going into
Okay,
close. So is it?
Hold on.
You have to educate me on this.
Well,
So there.
can we see the agenda? It has to be an agenda item.
Yeah. So.
Can we go back? It was up higher.
I don't know if it was something here. Youth options, E for E.
The only one I can think of is the ACP plan.
It's I think the youth options.
Oh, there you go.
Can
That
we
works.
go into closed session? I move that we go into closed session to discuss the implementation of youth options.
Thank you.
So
I'll second it.
So specifically, you're reviewing the performance and evaluation of Annie Paul Skill's handling of the youth options.
Correct, that's why we're going into closed session.
Okay.
So the motion was made by
Lisa, seconded by me or Ellie.
Yeah, you know.
Ellie punched
All in
me,
favor,
so
say aye.
I think it's hers.
And just for the record,
Can-
that's
can we go to the
19.85
bathroom?
sub C.
Can we go to the bathroom?
Yes.
Everybody's sure.